Alrighty, let's get into it, shall we? On this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to, of course, the next 2 hours, potentially. I don't know, we'll see, maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. Just depends on how this goes, of answering questions in regards to Week 3 fantasy football. Again, earlier today, I did post this video in regards to my top 40 running back rankings, so for those of you who haven't checked that out, be sure to swing on by and check that out. Click the like button on that video. It'd be greatly appreciated. But outside of that, in terms of all things fantasy football, I'll be answering questions. When you do send in a question, whether it is via super chat or typing it in the live chat, please do be sure to include your scoring format, whether that is a potential half PPR, full PPR, standard scoring league. All of that makes a huge difference in terms of making my life easier to potentially answering your questions. But outside of that, let's get into answering questions. In terms of like news that we've kind of heard over the course of today, we know that Joe Mixon didn't practice. We know that Kenneth Walker didn't practice. Even though I had both of them ranked, there's a possibility that both Cam Akers and Zach Charbonnet will be the stepping up running backs going into this week. There's a lot of questions that still have yet to be answered, but as the week progresses, again, these injuries are not trending in the right directions for many of these players. So just make sure that you have your handcuffs on roster accordingly so that you can go ahead and potentially pivot when the time arrives. Okay, let's get into answering questions. So we start off with the question that comes in from Michael Amato. Michael had went ahead and specifically said, "Evening, Andy. I got Kareem Hunt, already rumors being elevated from practice squad and available Sunday. You were right about the lack of trust for the other running backs. I don't know if he's going to be elevated this week. Quite frankly, even if he is elevated, I might trust other running backs ahead of him in terms of starting for fantasy. I was looking for Kareem Hunt as a guy that I'm trying to take the value of from weeks 4 through potentially maybe weeks 10, right? That's the span of time that we want to utilize him. So hopefully he does get elevated sooner rather than later. If he does end up getting elevated this week, I'll adjust my running back rankings. And on Sunday morning, when we do our live stream from 7 to 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, I will have him amongst the list if, in fact, he is activated. But, we will see as we approach going forward. I know that they also signed another running back. So there's a lot of movement that is going on with the Kansas City Chiefs. I think they signed one earlier today. I think it was Keontae Ingram, if I'm not mistaken. He's kind of a primary receiver or receiving back, but he could also be utilized in a lot of special teams work. That's maybe the reason why they potentially signed him accordingly. All right, let's see here. CG Ghosts or C Ghosts NY sends in a question. PPR traded Ford, Ridley, Chubb for Evans and Likely. Okay, I'm fine with that. I don't have an issue with it. Again, Ford and Chubb are kind of a tandem of that backfield, but as it currently stands, we don't know when Chubb's returning. Ford is currently being under siege for the Deontay Foreman opportunities that, of course, took place in week 2 and could potentially continue to take place going forward. You swap out Ridley for Evans, which is a huge upgrade there, and you get Isaiah Likely, which I'm assuming you needed a tight end in that scenario. So I have no issue with that. Good trade. Nathan Dennison sent in the question, says, "Help me. Hello. I'm 0-2 currently. My running backs are Josh Jacobs, Aaron Jones, Derrick Henry." Okay, very well. Jerome Ford, I have Nick Chubb as well. Someone offered me Jamar Chase and Jared Goff for Derrick Henry. Should I do it? Okay, so your running backs are... I would. Let me see what your wide receivers are. Should I do it or try to get Wilson? If I was you, I would take the deal. I would take Jamar Chase, clearly. I don't know if you need the quarterback. I don't know if you need the Jared Goff aspect of it. If it was just straight up Derrick Henry for Jamar Chase, I would take Jamar Chase 10 times out of 10 in a full PPR scoring format. Thank you for the question, Nathan. JT had sent in a question, said, just traded Jackson Smith and Jigba and Evan Ingram for Kittle. What do you think? I mean, based on all the injuries that have taken place with the organization of the 49ers, with Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Ayuk still not being at 100%, Kittle's going to be a huge part of this offense going forward until those pieces are back and at a full 100% rate. So we're going to see another couple weeks here of Kittle just absolutely dominating. And then we know that, every season that Kittle has been healthy in fantasy football, going back to 2019, he's always been a top 5 tight end by end of season. So this only helps his overall baseline of production, which is typically in the range of being a top 5 player at the position, elevate him to maybe even being top 3 by the end of the year. So I don't have an issue with this. Of course, assuming you have the wide receiver depth to be able to handle this, and you're getting rid of Ingram because he's going to be dealing with that hamstring injury for quite a while. Hopefully not, but I would assume that a hamstring injury is a 2 to 3 week, if not longer, process to recover 100% from. And even then, there's always the possibility of a re-aggravation, which is kind of why we're worried about the potential of A.J. Brown going forward, which, again, we'll have to keep an eye on. I know he didn't practice today, and he did tell the media that he's going to be out for the next couple weeks here. Dragon Slayer sent in a super chat. Thank you, Dragon Slayer. PPR, flex Mixon, Laporta, or Pickens If Mixon plays, he's going to get the flex. I think that's relatively simple from my perspective. As for the other two, let's say, for example, Mixon doesn't play and it's Akers in his stead. I would just then play Laporta at that position. But be sure to pick up Akers just in case, Dragon Slayer, just so you have it available in case of a pivoting option. I don't know when Houston plays. I'm assuming it's Sunday. I don't know if it's the afternoon slate. Let me actually check this out. Let me just check it so that we're kind of all on the same page in this regard. So in regards to this upcoming weekend, no, they're in the morning slate, so you don't really have to worry about it. You'll know by Sunday morning for sure, but yeah, I would say to pick it up just to be safe in that circumstance. Adam Amar sends in a question, says Kyrie Williams for Christian McCaffrey. I have Mason. Yeah, I don't have an issue with that. That's fine by me. That works for me. I would do that. If it wasn't for all of the injuries that took place with the Rams, I'd have a harder time committing to that kind of a transaction. But considering 3 of the starting offensive linemen of the Rams are out, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp dealing with all their injuries, and the next couple weeks are going to be really rough until we get a full extension of getting those receivers back. And even when you get those receivers back, you still have to wait for those offensive linemen. By that time, you'll have Christian McCaffrey in full force. Yeah, I'll take McCaffrey in that scenario. Let's see here. Kyron Williams ACL says, Josh Jacobs for Kenneth Walker trade, full PPR. I'd rather have Josh Jacobs. Kenneth Walker's dealing with an injury, and in terms of preseason value, I already valued Josh Jacobs way higher in comparison. So Josh Jacobs would be the player that I would want in this circumstance. Thank you. Alex Songrass sends in a question. Said in a 6-point per passing touchdown format, I have Anthony Richardson, Jaden Daniels, standard. Okay, very well. Godwin / Adams. Also, okay. Is this like a starter sit question here? Anthony Richardson or Jaden Daniels? Is that what you're asking me theoretically? Because if I was in your position, I'm taking Jaden Daniels and trying to trade him, and I'm just starting Anthony Richardson every week for the remainder of the season. And then as for your next kind of statement, standard Godwin or Adams, like if that's just a standard, like who am I starting between the two of them? This week, Tampa Bay takes on Denver, or I'm going to have to deal with Adams against Carolina. Honestly, I'd probably play Adams there. So yeah, Adams and AR would be the plays there. Also, trade Shakir plus Kincaid for Bowers. Yeah, I don't have an issue with that. Trade AR for Burrow. No, I'd rather have AR rest of the season. Listen, Anthony Richardson is going to be a mess. He's going to make a lot of simple, stupid mistakes. But the fact of the matter is his rushing upside and potential just saves his value in those circumstances. Let's see here. What a name. Inyo sends in a question. Mason for Walker or Mason and Ford for Rice and Chase Brown? It depends. Well, yeah, if it's me, if it's in a full PPR scoring format and you don't need the running back depth, I'll take the Rashee Rice side of that. If you need the running back depth in exchange for giving away Mason, then I would just take the Walker. I'm comfortable with both trades. It's just a matter of what your team requires right now. If it's a full PPR, the Rice trade seems like a really good one in that circumstance. Adam Amar has a follow-up question. Says Mason for Corum and Puka. I have Kyron. Do I want to trade Mason for an injured Puka Nacua, whose window I'm not 100% certain of? I mean, you can, if that's really the best deal that you could possibly muster over the course of the next couple weeks. Sure, but ultimately, it's a sketchy one. There's a lot of inherent risk in that scenario. But I get it. You're trying to protect your investment of Kyron. You're also trying to get some value out of Mason. Yeah, if nobody else is biting and no one else is going to really give you much value, and that's the best you can get, and you've approached every single other opportunity in avenue, then we just roll with it. All right, let's see here. Teddy sends in a question. Where is Teddy's question, though? It didn't get attached, unfortunately. Let's go ahead and Control F Teddy. All right, Teddy T-Bone says, are we willing to tank... Okay, wait. Are we willing to tank Dell another shot this week? Or will we wait and see mode? I understand what you're saying. Okay, so Tank Dell and the Houston Texans take on the Minnesota Vikings. Are we willing to give him another shot, or do we have to wait? I think it's very much so dependent on what is available to play elsewhere. Let's say, for example, you heeded my words in the last couple of days and you picked up Adam Thielen. I'd probably just roll with Adam Thielen this week instead. He's going to be in a lower wide receiver 3 conversation point in terms of where I'd start him. But yeah, I think in many of instances, there's going to be let's kind of sit him on the bench and wait and see. But again, I think it's very much so dependent on what you have available to you and what can play in his stead. Justin Cohen sends in a question, says DJ Moore or JSN this week. I'd probably play JSN there. Like I like DJ Moore, but dude, can I trust that he's going to be, I don't know, man. Caleb Williams, it doesn't look great. We're trending in a unfortunate kind of realm where it's beginning to look a lot like Bryce Young really quickly. That offense, that defense, I mean, the defense plays well, but the offense does not function in any sort of capacity, which it should, based on the volume of talent that they have accrued over the course of the last couple of years. So it is scary. I'm probably leaning towards JSN right now, which is probably the crazy play, but I just don't know if I can trust that Caleb Williams can effectively help elevate DJ Moore to the point where he needs to be. Zeke Rodriguez sends in a question, says in a full PPR, Hunter Henry or Mark Andrews? Okay. Between the two of them, I'm assuming this is just like a starter sit question rather than one of like a who do I want rest of the season, because rest of the season would be clearly Mark Andrews. As for this week, Henry taking on the Jets or Mark Andrews taking on the Dallas Cowboys. If it's my team, full PPR, I'd imagine, I'd probably play Mark Andrews there. I'd imagine that the New York Jets are going to watch film and say, there's quite literally only one wide receiver that we need to stop. We'll put our best coverage guy on Hunter Henry and make sure he cannot move. We'll bracket him for the entire game if we need to and force Brissett to have to throw to everyone else. And I'm going to hope that Robert Saleh and that defense is smart enough to accomplish something of that extent and kind of slow down Hunter Henry. So I'm going to lean towards Mark Andrews there. Full PPR. Second question, one spot, McLaurin, Thomas Jr., Demarcus Robinson or Xavier Worthy. Of those available, I don't want to play Brian Thomas Jr. I don't love the matchup against the Buffalo Bills. They've shut down every wide receiver thus far. McLaurin, really not a trustable option. I understand that Washington's against Cincinnati could be one that you want to play. Not interested. As for Worthy or Demarcus Robinson, I probably just play Worthy and hope for the upside there, Zeke. Thank you. Let's see here. We had a question that came in from Carter. Let me see, where the heck did it go? I scrolled a little too far, but let's go ahead and find it. There it is. Carter Bunch. Carter says, hey, Andrew, in a 10-team full PPR league, do I have, do I still have patience with Pittman, or should I try to starting other guys like Judy, Deontay Johnson, Kirk, or Sutton this week? Taking on the Chicago Bears, everything is pointing towards this not being a great week for him. He probably ends up going off if I tell you to sit him on the bench. But if it's me at this point, I'd be pretty comfortable rolling out Judy in this circumstance. Considering the New York Giants matchup, considering the volume he's seen as of late, I'd even be willing to roll these other guys. But for right now, it'd probably be Judy or Pittman. And if you're fed up with it, just roll with Judy against the Giants. Travis Baxter, number 2, says, me again. You're the GOAT. Hope my fantasy league mates never find you. Well, let's hope the otherwise. Let's hope everybody finds me. Thank you. Appreciate it. Reuben Roberts says, half PPR, give Mason plus Amari Cooper for Olave and Warren. If again, very much so, it's going to be a matter of like, is this the best you can get in exchange for Mason? Like, if these are your positional needs, like you need a wide receiver, getting Olave is great. You pretty much were able to turn a 13th round, 14th round, maybe even a waiver wire pickup in Mason into Olave, who was going at the back end of the second, early third. So if that's the investment that you end up flipping, fantastic, we'll take it. But if there's something better that you can get out there, you need something else in terms of another positional need for your roster, running back, tight end, etc. Try to address those. But if this is what this is the capacity limit of the value that you can flex for Mason within your league, then let's go for it. How are you so confident that Adam Thielen will be a guy compared to Johnson and Leggett? I think they're all going to be great, but I mean, when we're talking about the potential of the rapport that has already been built with Andy Dalton and Adam Thielen, considering they've been teammates going into last season and thus far this season, I think that in itself kind of gives the advantage to Adam Thielen in comparison to the other options. Also, typically, especially when you're a gunslinger like Andy Dalton, getting the ball out of your hands is really important because you cannot scramble. So typically, the routes that a slot receiver is going to run are far more friendlier than one that is going to be a deeper route down the field for a Leggett or a Deontay Johnson accordingly. So it's just a matter of the comfort level, the rapport they've already built. They've already played together within this offense last season. All of that kind of just gives Adam Thielen the advantage. And quite frankly, amongst all these receivers, I mean, he is the best receiver of the bunch. Let's see here. After Ruben Roberts' question, we had Chuba, who sends in a question, or Chuba, either way, says, should I trade Kyren Williams for Deebo Samuel and Lazard? I don't care for Lazard. He is irrelevant to me in terms of value, so it's Kyren and Deebo straight up. Let me see what you have available. Josh Jacobs, Brian Robinson Jr., Brooks, Steele. No, I'd keep what you have. I'd keep Kyren. You can make this trade if you want to. I don't really think you need it per se. Based on the wide receiver depth that I'm looking at and the running back or lack of depth that you have for this team, I'd rather just keep Kyren there. Travis Baxter says, what do you think about Hill for Cook and Cup? I have Nico, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Rashee Rice. You're going to trade away Tyreek Hill and get Cook and Cup. Yeah, if you're in need of a running back, I don't mind that at all. Not one bit. Look, I think Tyreek Hill is going to be relevant once the 4 weeks surpasses and the return of Tua Tagovailoa off the injured reserve presents itself, and Hill will go back to being his 20-point self. But if you're going to need a running back, and this is a perfect time for you to buy in on James Cook, and then additionally get Cooper Kupp while he's on a low, I guess like a tick down in value based on the fact that he'll probably miss the next 2 weeks with this ankle injury. If this is something that you need because of the running back depth is required, considering you have Marvin Harrison, Jr., Rashee Rice, and Nico Collins, I don't mind it. Braden Ryan sends in a question. Says, I'm in an 8-team PPR league. I traded Moore, Connor, and Ramondre for Ayuk and CD Lamb. Did I overpay? I think it's dependent on what you have at running back. It says my starting running backs are Mason and Gibbs, and I have a McCaffrey on my IR. So you gave away Connor. Okay. Yeah, no, I don't know if you technically overpaid. I think this is a relatively solid trade, overall. You get Ayuk, you get Lamb. Both are certainly going to be, Lamb has the capabilities of finishing as wide receiver 1. Ayuk can finish as a top 12 wide receiver once he gets to a full form. Connor and Ramondre have been playing out of their minds. DJ Moore has been more of an absent source there, but the question is, how long will this New England Patriots offense really produce at this high of a level? And how long will Connor's body hold up? So in this circumstance, I don't mind this trade. I actually like the idea of you building in on that wide receiver depth, considering you already have running backs stationed. Let's see here. Eric sends in a question. Says, drop Myers, Kirk, get Tolbert, Thielen. Yeah, I'd be really comfortable dropping Jacoby Myers and picking up Adam Thielen there. Thank you. All right, scrolling down, we had a question comes in from Gio Ortiz. Gio, thank you. It says, Pickens and Reed for Pollard to replace Pacheco in a full PPR. Pickens or Reed. If you're going to trade away one of the two, I would prefer to trade away Pickens, because the association with Justin Fields could lead to more fantasy upside going forward. But I do believe that now that we saw Jordan Love practicing like at a limited capacity, at least if not this week, returning next week, Jayden Reed gets back into that top tier conversation of being one of these options in a top 24 stance at wide receiver, in comparison to having to trust Pickens is going to be relevant with Justin Fields at quarterback. So yeah, as of right now, I'd be willing to go ahead and move Pickens for Pollard if you're able to do so. If you're able to do so, that's a huge, massive trade W that you can collect there. I don't know if you'll be able to, but you can certainly give it a shot. Or stick with either of Steele or Chuba Hubbard as my RB2. Yeah, those are... Look, the thing about Steele and Chuba Hubbard as your RB2, Gio, is that they are commodities that are fading away. Chuba Hubbard will eventually be replaced by Jonathan Brooks, and evidently Steele will probably be replaced by Kareem Hunt going forward. So yeah, let's make that move if you can. Thank you. Brandon L in the live chat said, half PPR Pollard or Neighbors in the flex this week. I don't really love the matchup for Neighbors against Denzel Ward in that secondary for the Cleveland Browns. I'd probably just play Pollard in this circumstance, especially with Spears dealing with his injury. Jake G sends in a question. Thank you, Jake. Says, drop Goddard or Palmer for Thielen and Leggett. I honestly would drop both of them for Thielen and Leggett just to see if we can find value with either of them. Again, it's going to be a dart throw. It could be all three of the Carolina Panthers receivers that are relevant. It could be none of them. But as it currently stands, if it was me and you already have a stud tight end, I understand A.J. Brown's missing time, but Goddard doesn't seem like he is a huge priority of this offense as of thus far this season. They'd rather throw bubble screens to a guy named Covey that I've never heard of instead. So yeah, I don't mind even dropping both in order to pick them both up and see what kind of value they could provide for us this week and beyond. Juan Vaca Ramirez sends in a question, says, in a full PPR, trade Mason and Terry McLaurin for Olave and Rashad White. Mason and Terry McLaurin for, yeah, I mean, let's do that. Yeah, for sure. Assuming, of course, you don't have Christian McCaffrey, let's make that move. Yeah, giving away Mason, that's a pretty good cash in comparison to the other Mason trades that I had seen earlier. I will absolutely be happy with that one. As for the rest of your context to your team, JSN, okay, running backs for Barkley, yeah, you're cool to go. That's a great trade. Thank you, Juan. Appreciate it. Max Bruin in live chat says, Lord Andrew, who do I start in a PPR flex? Kirk, Johnston, Downs, Dobbs, or Dortch? Yeah, in this current capacity, I don't love any of those potential plays at all, not even slightly. At this point, I'm probably leaning towards Johnston, but I mean, geez Louise, the fact that I even have to consider Johnston as a play over Kirk is worrisome / disappointing. I think that Christian Kirk should be the best player. He is the best wide receiver of the bunch. They just don't give him opportunity. So for right now, I'm probably leaning towards Johnston until later this week. I change my mind on, playing potentially Kirk. Start the Jets defense says elsewhere. Yeah, let's do that. Let's see here. What else is in the live chat? Chapnap says traded Achane and Smith for Mixon and Chase. Achane Smith. Yeah, that's cool. Make sure that you pick up Akers though. That is definitely something you're going to need there. Nathan Ray in the live chat says, does Scary Terry have a pulse? I mean, he technically had 6 receptions, so yes. X Franklin sends in a super chat. Thank you, X Franklin. He says, full PPR, should I trade Jahmyr Gibbs for ETN and Neighbors? If you need the wide receiver depth because you've lost a lot of talent because of injury, I'd be willing to make the move. I don't think it's that much of a downgrade to where you're really disappointed, because ultimately you're trading like a early second round pick for like a third and a fourth almost in some circumstances, 12-team league. So in terms of value proposition, I think it's relatively even. And then if ETN steps up, if Neighbors fills in for that wide receiver you need, you have, or you must have because you're making this trade, I have no issue with it, X Franklin. Thank you. Jeff sends in a question. Jeff75 says, start Dobbins or Moss in a flex in a non-PPR. Yeah, I'm going to lean towards Dobbins. I'd play the hot hand in this scenario. I think that Moss has got a great matchup, but ultimately Dobbins has just been on fire, averaging 9.85 yards per carry. It's no joke. Cody Rich sends in a super chat. There wasn't anything attached, Cody, but let me go ahead and see if I can find it in the live chat. Cody Rich, there wasn't anything attached to your super chat, and there isn't a message from you either. Let me go ahead and see if I can refresh my web browser. No, there's nothing. Do me a favor, Cody. Type in the live chat. That'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you. All right. After Cody Rich, we had another question that was sent in. So let me go ahead and get to that. Tatua28 sends in a question, says, okay, should I start both St. Brown and Jameson Williams before we even get any far? Yes. I have no issue starting them both. They're both hyper relevant. They're both getting a huge target share within this offense. So yes. Now, as to the continuing your question, or Waddle as my wide receiver 2. In the absence of Tua, not interested in playing Waddle in comparison to JMO. I'll take Jameson Williams in this circumstance. Man, the Jameson Williams really explode, huh? Now, again, there are going to be weeks where he's going to have himself very little opportunity when Laporta starts to get a lot more workload. But until then, let's continue to roll in the direction of his hot hand. As for the rest of the context here, as my wide receiver 2 full PPR league, also, which other wide receivers do you recommend to trade for? Williams. I just dropped Kirk for Ingram. Okay, so in terms of trading Jameson Williams, as of right now, I'm knocking on Chris Olave's door and I am saying please and thank you. I'm knocking on Ayuk door. I don't think you'll be able to get a Devontae Smith for it, but I'd definitely try. I'd be willing to also go after DK Metcalf. I'd also be willing to go after Malik Neighbors. Something of that extent. I'd be willing to go after Cooper Kupp. Stuff like that. Thank you. All right, let me see if Cody Rich typed in the live chat. Let me see if Cody's still here. Cody's there. Says it's right under my super chat. Is it really? Because when I use the F3 function, it does not pop up. Let me see here. Yeah, there's nothing there. So just retype it. You're good. I'm looking at the live chat. I'm looking at the super chat. There's nothing attached to it. So if you do me a favor, just type it out. You may have typed a long message. If anything, just go copy and paste it, Cody, and we'll be cool. All right. Until that happens, Z-Hens sends in a question. Z-Hens, thank you. 12-man half PPR. I traded Mooney and Likely for McLaurin. Okay, very well. I have McLaurin, Dell, Lockett, Downs, Demarcus Robinson, Deontay Johnson, and Thielen. Which three do I start? So you've got just a hodgepodge receiving core of disaster, is what you're saying. As it currently stands, it's probably, goodness gracious, it's probably like a Thielen, Dell, McLaurin week, most likely in this scenario, Z-Hands. Michael Burton sends in a question. Thank you, Michael. Says start one in a PPR. Brian Thomas Jr., nope. Ford, nope. Zamir White, probably. Najee Harris, nope. Akers. Yeah, as it currently stands, I'm probably going to lean towards Zamir White. Even if Akers takes over for Mixon, I would lean towards playing Zamir White in this circumstance going into the week. And then start two between the following options: Deontay Johnson, DeMarcus Robinson, Shakir, Scary Terry. Between those potential options, I'm leaning towards most likely rolling with Scary Terry and Deontay Johnson in a full PPR format. Thank you, Michael Barton. Appreciate it. Alrighty, let's see here. Okay, got your question, Cody. All right, Cody says, what's up, fellas? Trade potential. Should I trade my Brees and Ayuk for Jamar Chase and James Cook? Brees and Ayuk for Jamar Chase and James Cook. Yeah, I don't mind that. I think that's relatively even across the board. Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a matter of preference rather than a matter of like, oh, I'm getting a huge like influx of fantasy points in comparison. I think it's going to be a relatively even trade. We're technically, if this is like a half or full PPR, we're trading like 20-point main priority players in Brees and Jamar for one another, and then 13-plus point players, hopefully, in the case of Ayuk and James Cook for one another. So I think it's a relatively even trade. It's just kind of a matter of what your preference is amongst the groups. And if you want to have Chase and Cook, let's go for it. As for the context of the rest of your lineup, I don't think it's really relevant per se. I mean, again, you've got a pretty solid team across the board with, Kyler, Bijan, Waddle, Nico. But yeah, if you're comfortable with the trade, I'm all good for it, Cody. I think that's a pretty nice parallel move in this circumstance. Thank you for the question again. Official Hone sends it a question. Says, I got Christian McCaffrey, Debo, and Pacheco all injured. Got Mason, Aaron Jones, JSN, Tank Dell, P. Ryan, Hunt, DeMarcus Robinson, Ladd McConkey, Braylon Allen, Chase Brown. Pick 4 in a full PPR. I think it's relatively simple. Jordan Mason has to play every single week until otherwise noted. Alongside of him, in a full PPR scoring format, it'll most likely for me be you're going to play Aaron Jones and JSN alongside of him, and then do I want to play Tank Dell over Ladd McConkey? Ladd McConkey takes on Pittsburgh. I'd have to go and check out the matchup ultimately, but for right now, we'll just lean towards playing Tank. So it'll be Mason, Aaron Jones, JSN, Tank there. Official, thank you. Adam Amar says, will Rams sit Kyron end of season if tanking? I don't know if they're going to start tanking. That is a completely speculatory question that I have no business even beginning to try to answer because it's only week 3. You never know. I mean, I was going to say, what if they... Okay, I dropped something. I was going to say, what if they beat the 49ers? But that's not happening. So anyway, in this circumstance, I don't think they'll tank. If they do, the only reason they would begin to start tanking is if, something happens to Stafford. Tay Trax sends in a question. Says, in a 12-man full PPR, we have Kyler, JJ, Diggs, HN, ETN, Bowers, Pollard. Okay, very, very solid roster. Pittman, Worthy, Eckler. Should I look for 2-4-1 trade? Okay. Running back / wide receiver for a better wide receiver too? Yeah, I mean, I don't mind that. Like, if you want to take Diggs alongside of... I mean, the 2-for-1 trade that I'm looking at is like, you would take Diggs and Pittman and just try to go and upgrade. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know if I'm technically taking a running back here because I want to keep HN, ETN, and Pollard. Again, you don't have any running back depth on your bench, so it kind of leaves you vulnerable if you moved one and didn't bring a running back in return. So in this circumstance, yeah, I'd be willing to take Diggs and Pittman and make a move, or Diggs, Pittman, or Worthy, 2 of the 3, and try to make a move and get a better wide receiver too. I think that works in my opinion. Thank you, Tay. Diego sends in a question, says, in a full PPR 2 quarterback league, should I be concerned about my running backs? I have Breece Hall, Najee Harris, and Ford, along with Javonte. Oh, jeez. Should you be worried? Yes. Should you do anything about it? I think it's very much so dependent on what else you have. You have Chase, you have Rice, you have Ridley, you have Tank Dell, you have BTJ. Your quarterbacks are Burrow and Dak. I mean, technically, you'll be able to survive. And the wide receiver and quarterback talent you have in a 2 QB league is enough to where your RB2 really isn't going to matter. Once Najee Harris starts to score touchdowns, or once Javonte Williams in this offense actually start to score any points at all, they'll be relevant. Ford, until then, I mean, again, I did not anticipate a Deontay Foreman reprisal of a starting role in 2024, especially after they cut him just a couple weeks back. But as it stands, I'm not like horribly concerned with Najee Javonte. Considering all the other pieces that you have on roster, you're fine. If you would like to, you can take a Najee Harris, take a BTJ, and try to make an upgraded move. But again, I don't know how many people are going to be looking to trade for Najee at the moment. You might have to wait a couple weeks until he has a bigger performance. Joshua Wilkins sends in a question. Says in a half PPR flex, one between Pollard, JSN, Zamir White. Yeah, I'm going to play Pollard there. Thank you. Hakeem sends in a question. Says start 2, sit 1. Kyron, Brees, Connor, Walker. Yeah, it looks like Walker's not going to play. I mean, earlier today, I did see a little bit of a clip on Twitter in regards to him doing sprints at practice and then immediately after grabbing onto his like obliques, like his abdomen. I think there's a lot of discomfort still in that scenario. If I had to guess, the likelihood is that Walker probably doesn't play this week once again, which again is super unfortunate. And you'll probably be in a position to where you're starting Kyron, Brees, and Connor. If in fact we're in a situation where Walker does play and gets full representation of practice by Friday, then you would play. You of course know you're going to play Brees Hall on Thursday, but then you'd play Connor and Walker alongside of him. But that's again if he has a full representation of practice and participation by Friday. Let's see here. Ramiz sends in a question. Says looking to move Diggs, need a running back. Who should I try to target? This is the thing. Diggs is not going to bring back. I mean, I'd like to hope that Diggs has value to where he's going to bring back. Let's see here. What has Diggs done thus far? And like, let's say a full PPR. So Stephon Diggs thus far, 10 receptions, 70 yards, 2 touchdowns. As of last week's performance, obviously not even comparable to week 1. But if we're going to look for a running back that is kind of similar, maybe on a downward trend of production just off of last week, if you can somehow buy in on Rachaad White, I'd like to do that. Even if you have to give another piece, I'd be willing to. I think like Rachaad White, the ETNs of the world, if we can buy in on it, beautiful. If not, the next best option is to buy in on Kenneth Walker while he's injured and potentially missing another week here, just to buy him low because of the circumstantial like injury that has taken place. Outside of that, I mean, you would have to really try to go like digging for gems. Like you would have to go try to find hidden gems and hope that like DeAndre Swift becomes a running back of value in the future and you're going to invest in him, which ultimately I don't know how that's going to turn out. That's a tough one. You could always go after like a Singletary too, which I don't love, but you can certainly try to. But yeah, Rachaad White, that's number 1. Thank you. All right. After that question, we go to Max Brune, who says, PPR flex, Kirk, Johnston, Downs, Dobbs, or Dortch. A lot of these. Between the bunch, I think we answered this already in the live chat, but you sent in a super chat anyway. Thank you, Max. As of the available, you're probably playing Johnston if Herbert is 100% healthy. Otherwise, you're going to pivot to Kirk because I don't really trust anybody else in this circumstance. Dobbs could play if, in fact, Jordan Love is healthy by Friday, but again, that's an if. Ben sends in a question, says, about to give away Hurts and Aubrey for James Cook. Okay. I have Ford as my RB2 and Jaden Daniels on the bench. Very well. Worth the trade. You're going to send your kicker and your quarterback for James Cook. I don't have an issue with it. That's fine. You have Jaden Daniels. You can roll with the rest of the season. Cool. Sounds good to me. JJ sends in a question, says, hi, Andrew. Trade Saquon Barkley for Jamar Chase in a full PPR? I don't think so. Starting receivers are London, Demarcus Robinson, Shakir. My starting running backs are JT, Dobbins, AJ Brown is hurt currently. I think, yeah, so as it currently stands, I'd like to keep Saquon Barkley on roster in this circumstance. I understand that you're dealing with a quarterback issue. Can you give away Jonathan Taylor instead? Can you give away J.K. Dobbins instead? If you can, sure. If not, I kind of want to keep Saquon in this circumstance. I understand having both Saquon and AJ Brown could be something that you're not interested in having, but you drafted it, and once they're both healthy, it's going to pan out. It's not really going to be an issue here. So maybe try to convince them to take JT. That would be the best possible scenario in this circumstance. Jesse G says pick 2, JSN, Thielen, Ridley, Cooks, Wandell Robinson, JSN, Thielen, Ridley, Cooks, Wandell Robinson. JSN, Thielen. So yeah, I mean, as it currently stands, it's most likely going to be a play in which I'm rolling with. I'm not going to roll with Wandell Robinson. I'm not going to play Brandon Cooks. It's between Ridley, Thielen, and JSN. JSN versus Miami, Thielen versus Las Vegas, or Ridley and the Titans playing against Green Bay. Yeah, I'll probably roll with JSN and Ridley there as of right now in a half PPR. Nathan Ray sends in a question, says Pittman, Terry, Alec Pierce, Shakir, Worthy, Ford, flex. If I'm starting one in the flex this week, I'm in a full PPR scoring format. Oh, I don't love it. I don't love it, but I probably end up... Because if I had more confidence in Ford, Nathan, I'd tell you to play Ford, but I don't have enough confidence there. That's why I've ranked him relatively low in comparison to where I've had him in weeks past. Because of that lack of confidence, it's just now a dart throw of do we prefer Pittman or Terry McLaurin or Alec Pierce? And if you play one of Pittman or Alec Pierce, I mean, right now you're playing Alec Pierce, which it's tough, but that's probably where you're going in the direction of. Pollock sends in a question, says, wouldn't you trade Laporta for Olave in a full PPR? It depends what your backup tight end is. If your backup tight end theoretically is Brock Bowers, I'd be willing to make that trade. Thank you for the question, Pollux. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on from Pollock's question, we move on to Sven Dragon, who says, in a 0.25 PPR, start two between ETN, Dobbins, and Metcalf. Ooh, ETN, Dobbins, Metcalf. How do we want to approach this? Quarterback is AR and Carr. You know what I actually want to try to do really quickly? I'm going to... actually, I don't think it'll work. You know what? If I try, it might work. All right, give me a second here. Maybe I can do this. If I do this, and then theoretically just like, nope, that's the issue. Okay, so let's try it now. So if I do this, yeah, here we go. Let me cook a little bit here, guys. Hold up, here we go. There we are. And then all we got to do is Andrew's he's gonna mess around a little bit here. Oops, maybe we'll do that. That seems about right. Make this a little bit smaller. Boom. Okay, here we go. All right. And then at this point, we probably get rid of the QR code and then we just blow this up a little bit. Aha, hold up. Wait a minute. Okay, so let's figure this out. So first and foremost, we need to figure out what question we're on. So then at that point, it's just a matter of the rolling and scrolling. You know what? This is a project for another time. Now that I'm looking at it, I have to really curate it just so that it works properly. Otherwise, we'll be in trouble. I don't want it to get confusing. Let's just go back to answering questions in the normal way. Yeah, I'll have to actually work on that before I actually start to roll that on out. I thought about it, but I already knew I was going to find some problems already. Okay, anyway, to answer your question, between the available options you have there, Carr or Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson has to play. Between ETN, Dobbins, and Metcalf, probably leaning in the direction of playing Dobbins. And do I want to play Metcalf over ETN? No, I probably play both the running backs there in a half PPR. Or it's not even half PPR. It's 0.25 per reception. So I play both the running backs in that circumstance. Thank you. After Sven Dragon, we have Hassan. Hassan says, start Daniels or Burrow? Pick up Shakir for Sutton. I think I'd rather have Sutton as of right now. As for Daniels or Burrow, yeah, I'm going to lean towards the upside of Burrow in this given week. I'll take Burrow there. I think Washington's defense is so bad that Burrow actually has himself a really, really nice week for fantasy. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from A, who says, start Jacobs or DK Metcalf in a 12-team full PPR. I think regardless of format, I think you kind of have to play Jacobs in this circumstance. He's just so good. I mean, he literally could have had 20 fantasy points without a single reception last week because of the volume of opportunity that they gave him. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from Where is Cool? Says, pick two running backs in a full PPR. Moss, Irving, Corum, Allen, and Akers. I mean, as it currently stands, I mean, I'm probably playing Moss, and then you're hoping to see if Akers plays. If he doesn't, you would then have to play Irving because you're not going to wait for Braylon Allen. So yeah, it's Moss and Akers. Otherwise, if Mixon does play, you play Moss and Irving. Thank you. Don Ray Morales sends in a question, says, trade away Zeke for Bucky Irving. I have Rachaad White. Yeah, that works for me. Thank you. Cjo2 says, should I start Steelers defense? Okay, very well. It depends. I mean, look, if Herbert doesn't go, then obviously the Steelers defense are an incredible play. But as for the Bears defense this week against Indianapolis, I mean, I don't mind that either. If I'm going to prefer one of the two, I'd probably rather play. Yeah, I'd rather play the Bears defense if I'm picking one of the two. Thank you. If, in fact, Herbert is out, though, because of that injury, we'll just play Steelers. Box of Juice says, 3 wide receiver PPR. Should I trade Sharp and Reed for Ayuk? If you don't have Kenneth Walker and you don't need Sharp, then I have no issue with it. Make the trade. Thank you. Jake the Steak says, wide receiver tight end flex, JSN, Waddle, Swift, Bowers, McBride, Johnson. Out of the group, I'm probably playing McBride. If I can only play one, that's what I'm doing. But if it's 3 plays, it's wide receiver, tight end, and flex, then it would go McBride, JSN, and Bowers. Thank you. Little Boy Blue sends in a super chat. Little Boy, I don't know where the heck the question typically goes. Whenever you send it in, it always gets lost. All right, so Little Boy Blue says, hey, Andrew, in a full PPR, Hunter Henry or Kyle Pitts this week? I'd rather play Kyle Pitts. And your thoughts on Bucky Irving and Rachaad White rest of the season? Rachaad White will probably lose more opportunity within the running game to Bucky Irving. But again, Rachaad White's overall upside purely is going to be his receiving workload and the touchdowns that he scores, which I don't think are going to be going any other direction. So I'm not too worried about him as it currently stands. And he fully practiced today, so not really too much worry for that injury concern that we typically had at least 24 hours earlier. Romeo Connor sends in a question. Says in a half PPR, 12 teams. Do I drop Mooney for Pierce? I got Anthony Richardson, Saquon, Etienne, Ramondre, McBride, Moore, McLaurin. Okay, so Romeo Connor. I do not mind dropping Mooney for Pierce. I think it's okay. I think both of them, I mean, look, if Pierce continues to play at a level at which I'm not expecting, then even better. Otherwise, I mean, you're not going to lose out on much with dropping Mooney per se. Mooney's going to have inconsistencies. So if you want to make the swap, I don't have an issue with it at all. Let's see here. Steven Vale sends in a question. 10-team PPR. Hurts, Godwin, Waddle, Breece Hall, Etienne, McBride, Dobbins. Very well. I'm down Kupp and T. Higgins. Stashed Hawkinson on the injured reserve. Trade ideas, or should I sit? As it currently stands, look, Godwin's playing extremely well. Breece Hall's great. Etienne, McBride, Hurts don't really need to move. Dobbins is probably somebody that I'm looking to try to move in your position, but if you move Dobbins, you'll be trading for a running back because, quite frankly, you don't need wide receiver. You have Kupp and T. Higgins who will eventually return. Yeah, in your position, like if you want to move Dobbins and try to go buy low on a running back, you can try to do so. I don't know how successful you'll be in that circumstance. Like if it's me and I have an opportunity of trading Dobbins and Waddle and maybe going and knocking on a Jonathan Taylor door, I think I might actually take it. But you may be giving up too much if Dobbins just continues to play out of his mind, which at this point, again, all signs are pointing towards he's continuing to play well. But for right now, I don't think you have to move, but you could certainly try to sell Dobbins high. But you don't really need a wide receiver, so you'd have to sell him for a running back, which, again, I mean, you try to sell him for, you already have Dobbins. You could try to sell him for Josh Jacobs. I don't think that'll work, but you can certainly try. Knock on the door, see what they say. Stephen Bowman sends in a super chat. Thank you, Stephen. He says, in a half point per carry league / full PPR, okay, should I drop Benson for Deontay or Deontay for Christian Watson? My wide receivers are Waddle, Rice, Shakir, Tay, Kirk. Okay, so do you have, okay, let's see, your running backs are Barkley, Etienne, Cook, Mason. Yeah, in your position, I'd be willing to drop Benson in order to pick up Watson. I don't have an issue with it. Again, it's just a matter of like, is Christian Watson ever going to play for this team? Waddle, Rice, Shakir, Tay, as in Devontae Adams, Kirk, and Conkey. Yeah, look, the way I see it, Christian Watson probably never plays for this team. So in your scenario, If anything, you're just holding on to Trey Benson as a lottery ticket. You don't need to drop him. If you want to pick up Christian Watson because you can start 3 wide receivers or potentially 4 wide receivers in this league, then sure, with the double flex format. But ultimately, again, I don't think you need him to be on this team. I think I'd rather just have the upside of the lottery ticket as it stands. Thank you. Alo sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, how do we feel about London and Dobbins going forward? I mean, I think that the the Atlanta Falcons season completely shifted and changed their potential trajectory and direction just off of that final drive. The final 4 plays of that game quite literally saved the Atlanta Falcons season to the extent to where I think London will not go in a positive direction, where if that drive doesn't occur, if Saquon Barkley catches that reception, we are spiraling into a complete disaster of a season, especially going up against the Kansas City Chiefs next. So I'm confident in London. Again, Dobbins has been highly efficient in his overall opportunities and is severely outplaying Gus Edwards. So, again, if he continues to play well, there's nothing to really be worried about in those circumstances. Now, obviously, we would want to get better players. Like, I would want to get Jonathan Taylor rather than Dobbins. I have more hope in that kind of scenario. There's more stability of potential for success. But outside of that, really, there's nothing that you need to do. Let's see here. I have Chase, Collins, Gibbs, Connor, Montgomery, Ford. Yeah, you got a really strong team. You've pretty much hit the jackpot on every single pick. I know Chase has been relatively slow to the begin, but everything else is hitting for you as of right now, Elo. So there's nothing, you don't really have to move. Now, if you want to, you could take London and Dobbins and just go trade them for CeeDee Lamb and see what happens, but that's up to you. I mean, I'd be down, honestly. Let's see here. Adam sends in a super chat. Adam, I don't know if there was anything attached to it. Let me see if I can find your message. Adam says, in a full PPR, I need one flex. Judy, Brian Thomas Jr., or Warren. Out of the 3, I'm probably playing Judy this week. Thank you. Reese 2010 says, full PPR. Do I start Neighbors or Jerome Ford in the flex? I'd probably play Neighbors there. Yeah, I would play Neighbors if it was my team. Week 1 and 2 wide receivers didn't do much against Cleveland. Yeah, I don't expect Neighbors to do much versus Cleveland, but I don't trust Jerome Ford as far as I could throw him. Like that's the issue. I just don't trust him at all. I don't know if I'm going to get any production out of him outside of potentially 5 or 6 rushing attempts and a couple receptions. So that concern itself leans me away from him. So I'm going to go towards Neighbors as the safety blanket because of the PPR format. Rogo says, yo, start Baker or Stroud this week. I think it'd be impossible for me not to suggest for you to start Stroud. If at any point we start benching Stroud, that's when we have to trade him. So until further notice, Stroud's kind of an automatic start at quarterback. As for your follow-up question, in terms of defense, Green Bay, New Orleans, or Los Angeles Chargers, yeah, if it's me, I'm playing Green Bay's defense versus the Tennessee Titans. Thank you. Lamosity says, Ramondre Stevenson or Terry McLaurin for Olave and Singletary. Ooh, honestly, I'd probably rather keep the Ramondre Stevenson, Terry McLaurin combo unless you were like absolutely shit out of luck with wide receivers and you have an abundance of running backs to potentially move. If you were actually in that kind of a situation where you have no wide receivers and you need some, I'd even be willing to move Ramondre and Terry McLaurin for just a better wide receiver outright in comparison to Olave. Like, I'd just go knock on the door of Mike Evans and just go get him or Devontae Adams, right? I wouldn't go after Olave in this kind of a scenario. For a 2 for 2. I'd rather just go 2 for 1 and try to just go make a huge upgrade. Otherwise, I'm okay keeping what you have. Diego sends in a question, says, full PPR Ford plus Ridley for Aaron Jones. Yeah, I'll take Aaron Jones side of that. Thank you. Make sure you have to, look, you don't have to, but you should probably have Ty Chandler on roster as well for safety reasons, handcuff reasons, after making that trade. Jordy Peasy sends in a question. Thank you, Jordy. Half PPR. Running backs, okay. Half PPR. My running backs are Javonte Williams, David Montgomery, Ty Chandler, Brooks, Warren, Wright. Okay, so we're in trouble. Do I trade Ty Chandler for Swift and run Swift and Montgomery till Brooks comes back? You kind of have to, yeah. That's fine by me. Big Al 9 says Drake or Neighbors in a standard 10 yards per point. So yeah, if you get 0 points per reception this week, I'd rather play Drake London. Thank you. Anthony C sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew, I'm trying to trade for Pollard. I offered Ford and Hopkins, but he countered with Pittman and He countered Pittman and Pollard for Shaheed and Ford. Yeah. So you would get Pollard and Pittman, and they would just only take Shaheed and Ford? Brother, I mean, can I play in these leagues? I mean, goodness gracious. Yes, we'll take Pittman and Pollard. That's just a free trade. I mean, they're just giving you free value for nothing. I don't understand it. Low-key Dusty says, trade Higgins for Brian Thomas Jr. No, I'd keep Higgins. Big Cat says, how would have you value? Yeah, look, the English is busted here. It's not me, guys. I'm assuming you're asking, how would you value Cooper Kupp in a PPR? I got offered Laporta and Dell, but I don't know. You got offered Laporta and Dell for Cooper Kupp. I'd rather just keep Cooper Kupp in this circumstance. I don't really think I want to try. I mean, like, okay, you have Njoku, but there's got to be somebody else on the waivers you can pick up until he returns, whether that is Hunter Henry, Mike Gesicki, Jonnu Smith, Schoonmaker, Bretton Strange, something of that extent that could be a weekly play and then swap to another tight end effectively. So in your circumstance, I'd probably keep Kupp. Again, if he's only going to be out for 1 to 2 weeks and Puka's going to have this knee injury problem for a while, if not maybe the rest of the season, it's going to continue to re-aggravate, then yeah, I'd rather just have Kupp in that circumstance. Nathan Ray sends in a super chat. There wasn't anything attached. Nathan, let me see if I can find it. Andrew, you misunderstood my question. Got it. Let me see where your original question was, and then let's see if I can re-understand it. So your question is PPR: Pittman, Terry, Alec Pierce, Shakir, Worthy, Ford at flex. I don't know what you mean. How could I you misunderstood. Need answers for wide receiver. I'm so confused, Nathan. That doesn't clear up anything at the slightest. Misunderstood. Super chat. I super chat. Need 2 wide receivers to start. Thank you. Got it. Now I get it. If I'm starting 2 of these wide receivers, it's probably Worthy and Pierce. That's the way I would roll it. Thank you. And then if you need a flex on top of it, at that point, I'd probably roll with... yeah, if you also need a flex on top of that, I'd probably take Michael Pittman Jr. and roll him and just roll 2 Colts wide receivers. Yep, it's crazy, but I would do it. Thank you. Okay, after Nathan Ray, we scroll back up. Maurice Drake says, hi, Andrew. What wide receiver do I start in a half PPR? My wide receivers are Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith, and T. Higgins. Higgins is probably not going to play this week, so you just roll with Garrett Wilson and Jackson Smith. If Higgins does play this week and he gets a full designation of practice by Friday, I would play him against Washington, but I don't think that's going to be the case. So you probably roll with JSN and Wilson. Thank you. Max Block says, in a PPR pick 3. All right, let's see here. We have Lazard. We have Dalton Schultz. We have T. Johnson. We have C. Kirk. We have Dobbs. And we have Pierce. And we have Watson. So if I have to play 3 of these potential options, it's Alec Pierce. It's Christian Kirk. And it's most likely after that, Christian Watson. Those are the 3 that I would roll with. Thank you. Corey sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew. Keep it up, man. In a full PPR, would you trade away Garrett Wilson, Puka Nacua, and Connor? Sorry. Garrett Wilson, Puka Nacua, Connor, and Worthy for Achane, AJ Brown, and Marvin Harrison Jr. So you're going to trade away that running back for that one. You're going to trade away that receiver for that one, and then that receiver for that one. And you're giving away Worthy just so you can get out of the situation of Puka, but then get yourself into a situation of AJ Brown, which ultimately I could understand. Calculating in the brain, I don't mind it. If you get the Achane side, I don't have an issue with it. The issue that I have is AJ Brown, but based on just like looking at the value of both these teams, by the time AJ Brown comes back, that's the same amount of time that Puka will come back. And if we're just evaluating across the board, I have no issue with the Achane side if you want to make that deal. At a full healthy rate, Marvin Harrison, Achane, when Tua comes back, and AJ Brown at a full healthy, yeah, I think that's it's an even trade. You may have a little bit of a loss, but the loss that you have out of Worthy, I'm just willing to tank it just to make a swap in this position. I don't have an issue with that, Corey. Morales sends in a question. Don Ray says, in a half PPR, Khalil Shakir or DeAndre Swift? If it's against Jacksonville, I think I have to play DeAndre Swift this week. PL sends in a question, says, Anthony Richardson or Geno Smith? Rough times, bro. Is it rough times? I don't really feel like it's rough times per se. I think I'm playing Anthony Richardson until further notice. I mean, I understand he threw 3 picks last week, but I don't find myself in a position of panic to where I'm benching him after that performance. So yeah, if I was in your guys' position, which again, if you're asking for my legitimate opinion, I'm gonna play Richardson. Like, I get it. He scored less than 10 points last week, but I wouldn't expect that to be a weekly occurrence. All right, let's see here. We move on to a question that comes in from Maurice Drake, who says, it's 3 wide receiver, half PPR. Forgot to put that in. Okay, so let's see here. Yeah, I mean, the half PPR factor doesn't, I mean, you already mentioned that. And then you only mentioned 3 wide receivers anyway. So I'm confused. You mentioned 3 wide receivers and you say it's a 3 wide receiver league. So I'm confused now, Maurice. Now I'm definitely confused. Jordan McQueen sends in the question, says, who should I trade? Sorry, who should I drop for Ingram? Bucky Irving or Isaiah Likely? I have Andrews. Okay, very well. I have Hall, Jacobs, Javonte. Okay, so you don't even have Rashad White. So basically, you only have Bucky Irving just for a lottery ticket. If you're picking up Evan Ingram and you're going to start Mark Andrews every week henceforth, then yeah, technically you just drop Likely unless you can move him in the trade. If you can't move him in the trade, then technically you're just better off holding Bucky Irving as the lottery ticket. Leftover sends in a question, says, I traded away Garrett Wilson and Xavier Worthy for Jamar Chase and Keon Coleman. Yeah, I have no issue with that. As to whether you won or lost, I think it's a win because Jamar Chase I prefer greatly over Garrett Wilson the rest of the season. LOLG says, hey Andrew, I just traded away Waddle and Judy for Debo. Great. I don't mind that at all. I understand Debo's dealing with an injury, but he gets hurt every year. He'll be fine. He'll be back sooner rather than later. The guy needed wide receivers because he had Nakua and Samuel. I have Christian McCaffrey, Mason. Did I win? Yeah, I think you're fine there. I think going forward again, by the time that Waddle gets back Debo, and by the time that by the time that Waddle gets back Tua and Debo gets healthy, it could be the same range of time, probably quicker for Debo to recover. But ultimately, I prefer Debo over Waddle rest of the season as it currently stands. Thank you. Teddy T-Bone says, send Kincaid / Trevor Lawrence for Tua. I have Bowers. Yeah, that's fine. I don't have an issue with that. Trevor Lawrence is not good enough for me to consider starting him in any sort of capacity. So if you're giving him away, he's pretty much just fodder in that scenario. Thank you for the question. Appreciate it. All right, let's hear. Connor says, trade my Smitty and Connor for Jefferson. I think there's a lot of context that's missing in a bubble. In an ultimate bubble, I'd say you're probably giving up too much as of right now. I mean, Connor's just been on fire. Devontae Smith is going to benefit greatly from the fact that he is the key number 1 wide receiver for the next couple weeks here. And even when he is not the key number 1, he's operating out of the slot position. So he's just going to continue to gain favor in this offense like we expected this offseason. So unless you are playing in an 8-team league or 6-team league, I think you're giving up a little too much there, Connor. Sergio says, is Tyreek and a wide receiver 2 / wide receiver 3 for Kamara a good trade? Trading away Tyreek Hill for Kamara, if you are like me and you believe that Tua Tagovailoa comes back after the IR stint, so in 4 weeks, once we get to week 7, if you believe, like I do, that Tua Tagovailoa will return, giving away Tyreek Hill now for Alvin Kamara is perfectly fine as long as your additional piece that you're giving away is not that important. Like, it's got to be just when you say wide receiver 2 / wide receiver 3, it cannot be a wide receiver 2. It cannot be a good wide receiver 3. So like if you're like, hey Andrew, I'm going to give away, like, I'm struggling a running back. Tyreek Hill's not doing anything for me for the next couple weeks to an extent. I mean, he's still going to score. I'm going to give away Tyreek and, I don't know, let's throw in a name. Let's say I'm going to throw in Tyreek Hill and Gabe Davis to get Kamara. Sure, I'll take the Kamara side. If you're in need of a running back, I think it's fine. But if you're not, and you have to give up like an actual piece, like, oh, I got to give away Tyreek Hill and Michael Pittman Jr. or Tyreek Hill and Amari Cooper. If you've got to give away legitimate, and Keenan Allen, if you've got to give away legitimate pieces for Kamara, I just hold on to to Tyreek. Go Bill sends in a question. Says flex 1 in a PPR. Najee Harris, Brandon Cooks, Judy, Thielen, Mooney. In a full PPR format. All right, let's see here. See how I have it ranked. Can this thing open up, please? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, for those of you who are joining us while we answer this question, welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. Let's see how many people are in this live chat right now. There's about 485 of you. If you guys are here, thank you. Welcome. Again, we live stream every night here on the channel, just trying to answer questions. We've been here for about an hour. Hopefully, we'll probably be here about an hour. Another, I don't know. I'm going to tend towards the idea of maybe another half hour, maybe another hour. Time will tell. But either way, thank you for being here. I'm trying to answer questions to the best of my ability. There's a lot of you and one of me. I'm taking super chats in terms of priority. So just going to continue to go in that direction. Thank you. All right, let's see here. So if in fact we are looking at wide receiver and we look up Thielen, okay, or Judy, I think Judy's probably the best play of the group with no Thielen bias. Of the mentioned players that you have here, B Cooks, Najee Harris, PPR, yeah, go Bills. Let's play Judy, number 1. That's probably your go-to play for the week, especially considering the advantageous matchup against the Giants secondary. Julian sends in a question, says half PPR. Ford or Mooney in the flex? I'd probably at that point just play Ford. Thank you. Stephen Bowman says, Andrew, it's not Devontae as in, it's Deontay. Got it. All right. Does that change your mind? Let me scroll back down, Stephen Bowman, and let me check this out. Okay. Benson or Deontay for Christian Watson? Yeah, I already knew that. Wait, what? Did I say Devontae? I think I said Deontay Johnson. So let me scroll back up here. Let me see, maybe Deontay Johnson's come. So 3 wide receivers and 2 running backs and 2 flex in this league. Got it. In this scenario, you should drop Benson or Watson. Half point per carry league. Do I pick up? Yeah, again, in this circumstance, considering you can start 5 flex, then at that point, yes, I'm interested. But I'm not dropping Deontay Johnson. I'd just drop Trey Benson in that scenario, Steven. Thank you. Cinco2X says, I have Mixon. Would you try to stash Cam Akers, Sutton, Warren, Kareem Hunt, or Quentin Johnston? Out of the group of players, it's probably in your best interest to stash Cam Akers for this week, because again, if you don't have Mixon, the runner-up in terms of the most valuable prospect for this week would be Cam Akers. But if you had an alternative option to start instead of Mixon, if in fact he's out and you don't want to play Akers and you have somebody else that's relevant, I'm picking up Kareem Hunt. Thank you, Cinco. Seventh Season says, Cousins or Darnold this week? That's a really good question. I think it depends on the health of Jefferson and Addison. If Addison plays, I'd be leaning in that direction, but until then, I'd probably go with Cousins. Nate Will says, start Jamison Williams or Mike Evans? Mike Evans, thank you. C. Banger says, hi, PPR, Najee Harris or Ford? Have to start Pickens. Thank you. Okay. Between the two of them, I want to hope that Ford can get the job done and isn't going to get completely yoinked out of touches. The issue is I cannot 100% objectively say that is going to be the case, so I will just rather play Najee in this scenario. La Raza says, traded Mason and Ayuk for JT Olave. Thoughts? Perfect. Great. Fantastic trade. Good job, La Raza. Daniel Zoe says, in a full PPR, I have Rashad White, J.K. Dobbins, Amon-Ra, Ayuk, Marvin Harrison, Kincaid, Dell, McLaurin, Shakir, Swift, Braylon Allen. On the waiver wire, we have Adunze, Thielen, Judy, Pirine, Warren, Chuba Hubbard, replace. Of the availables that you have, considering you don't have Breece Hall on this team, I'd be willing to pick up Jerry Judy in the case of Braylon Allen. And I think that's about it. Don't think I make any other move outside of that. Thank you for the question, Daniel. Alex Matos says, hey Drew, I got an offer for a trade for George Kittle for Pickens and Charbonnet in return. If you have Kenneth Walker, I'd say that long term, it's probably safer to have Charbonnet on roster in order to make this move. But ultimately, if you don't have Kenneth Walker, I have no interest in rostering Charbonnet because I don't expect Kenneth Walker's injury to be something that is going to, take a while to return from. So I'd rather just have Kittle as it currently stands with all the injuries that have taken place to that offense. Jordan sends in a question, says, would you rather JMO, Montgomery, Pickens, or Pittman in the flex in a full PPR? In a full PPR scoring format going into this week, I'd probably rather play JMO over the bunch. Also, I got Kincaid, Pittman for Waddle and Swift. You've got Kincaid and Pittman for Waddle and Swift. If you need to do the tight end, I'm okay with it, but Kincaid's going to have to step up, and actually show signs of life in comparison to where he's been as of late. Justin sends in a question. Says, in a half PPR, 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and no flex league, we have Garrett Wilson, George Pickens, Johnston, McLaurin Cup, JT Jacobs, JK, Walker, Charbonnet. Started 0-2. I want to shake it up. Jacobs for Nico Collins. Jacobs for Nico Collins. Can we trade away J.K. Dobbins for Nico Collins? I don't think you could. Jacobs for Nico Collins. Considering your wide receiver depth is lacking, I'm okay with it. That's fine by me. I mean, the half PPR scares the shit out of me, but if you're looking to shake it up and no one's going to take J.K. Dobbins off of your hands in this kind of an exchange, or no one will, have you offered Walker and Charbonnet? Maybe they'll take both those. If they won't, then I'm okay with it. I'm not like super attached to the idea of having to play Jacobs, especially when you're playing in a 3 wide receiver league and you need to have a third stud wide receiver and you can survive playing JT and Walker in the future. So yeah, that's fine. JK sends in a question, says in a 12-team full PPR, we have Hurts, Jefferson, Cooper, Evans, Moss, Swift, Daniels, Elliott, Edwards, Corum, Braylon Allen, Quentin Johnston, Kittle. I'm lacking running back depth. Who should I trade? So in the lack of depth at running back, you're probably in a position to where you're looking to it's Moss, Swift at running back. You are in so much trouble. It is disastrous. If I was you, I'm taking Jefferson or Evans and I'm moving them for a running back. So like I'd take Jefferson and I'd go knock on the Bijan Robinson door and try to make a move there. If you're not able to do that, then you're looking for probably Evans for a running back of the caliber of, let's see here. In terms of running backs that are available right now, that Evans could, at that point, I'd be like taking Evans and going like, hey, David Montgomery manager, what are we thinking, Or potentially, there's no way they're going to give you Connor as of right now. There's no way they're going to give you James Cook. You might be able to get lucky and find a panicking Devon Achane manager, but I doubt that takes place. Derrick Henry sounds good to me. Jonathan Taylor sounds good to me if you're going to trade away Evans. Those are the kind of running backs that I'm looking for. Thank you. All right, after that question, we scroll up to Maurice Drake, who says, should I trade Tank Dell? He hasn't balled out. Again, what are you going to get for him, really? Considering he hasn't done anything, can you really trade him for any value? Like, if you can, then sure. But if you're just selling the name and there's a lack of production and you're not going to get much out of him, what's the point of trading him when you can just wait for him to have a potential pop-off breakout week in the future and then flipping him after that? Adam sends in a question. Adam Terrazon says, in a full PPR, I got offered ETN for my Dobbins. Okay, cool. I'll take it. Would you make this trade? Yes, I would make the trade. Or target a running back like Jonathan Taylor? Yeah, if you can get Taylor instead, let's do that. My running backs are Moser, Montgomery, and Kenneth Walker. Yeah, if you can get Taylor, let's do that. He's a better running back. If you can get Taylor or Jacobs in comparison to ETN, I'd be down. But even if you can't, I'm perfectly fine settling for ETN there. Cambino 15 says 2 PPR trade Dobbins and DJ Moore for Saquon. Yes, let's do it. Insta trade, give me Saquon. Trade Jacobs for Ayuk. I have Jonathan Taylor, Breece Hall, Kyron Williams. Yeah, considering all the players that you have, I don't mind either of those trades. I would take them both. That's fine by me. You have just studs across the board, so you're really not in any panic mode at all. Thank you, Cambino. Mason Davis says, hey, Andrew, would you trade Kamara for Rashad White? In any one of these following 3: Neighbors, Diggs, BTJ. Would I trade Kamara for Rashad White and Neighbors is basically the question. No, I wouldn't. I think I'd keep Kamara as right now. Let me see your roster. It says Josh Allen, Bijan Robinson, Kamara, London, Terry, Brian Robinson, Tony Pollard. Holy moly. Okay. Hold up. You have a lot of running back depth. So considering you have Bijan, Kamara, Brian Robinson Jr., Tony Pollard, why don't you take Tony Pollard and go and get a wide receiver for him instead of having to break off your Kamara piece? I'd rather go trade Tony Pollard at this point. He's coming off of 2 great weeks, a lot of usage, a lot of opportunity share, and you could probably sell him for a pretty piece at this point. That's what I'm looking for. If you can, go buy Ayuk, go buy Olave. I mean, that's at least what I try to do. If you can get even better than that, you can get a Devontae Smith, you can get a Mike Evans, then sheesh, let's go for those. Devontae Adams, let's knock on those doors. But ultimately, you've got so much running back depth that I'd keep Kamara and ship off the rest. Brian Robinson Jr. and TP should be gone out the door first before you move away Kamara. Thank you. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from Roro. It says in a 12-team full PPR, trade Kyren Williams for Derrick Henry straight up. Yeah, I don't mind that. I have no issue with it right now. Again, Kyren Williams and that offensive line is going to suffer for a little while. And I think Derrick Henry kind of has pretty sustained value going forward across, especially considering his really easy strength of schedule across the rest of the season. So I don't have an issue with it. Z Hens says, me again, in a half PPR, Murray, Barkley, Kyren, Kenneth Walker, McBride, Dell, Thielen, plus a bunch of bad wide receivers. You said trade Kyren or Murray. Who would you give Kyren or Dell plus Walker? Who could I get for Kyren or Dell plus Walker? Look, you know how someone just asked me if I would trade Kyren for Derrick Henry straight up? I mean, I would do that. Like, if I can go get another running back that is in a similar value piece, like if I can trade Kyren for Jacobs, or if I could trade Kyren for Jonathan Taylor or Derrick Henry, somebody that is in that value, position at running back, I would do it. And I do it in a heartbeat. So as for Dell plus Walker, it's very much so dependent on who wants to trade for an injured running back in Dell and a lackluster productive wide receiver injured running back in Walker and a lackluster producer in Dell. So Kyron's just the easier one to move on from at the moment. Cameron Kaplan says, thoughts on Whittington? To be determined. Again, if he plays in the slot position like he did last week, in the absence of Kupp, he was the primary slot receiver. So if he comes in and immediately takes over that role, in my most important league, I picked him up. So I'm kind of just going to wait and see how it transpires. Drop Christian Kirk? Mistake? Yeah, I think dropping Christian Kirk's probably a mistake. But in terms of Whittington, time will tell. Because again, here's the thing. Cooper Kupp's not out for the season. So Cooper Kupp will return and take the spot from Whittington, or Puka Nacua will. Either way, one of these guys is coming back to take his job. Christian Kirk has another 16 weeks of eligible playing for fantasy. So, yeah. Jordy Peasy sends in a question, says, should I do Singletary instead of Swift for Chandler? Jeez Louise. Would I rather have Singletary rest of the season? Singletary seems like, oh man. Would I rather have Singletary? Yeah, I think that's better. That's probably better. Thank you, Jordy. Cinco2X says, I was asking who I should drop for Akers. Was that really what you were asking? Let me scroll down here. So I'm sorry about that. Where's Cinco's question? Said, I have Mixon. Who should I drop? God, I'm so stupid. Look, I'm not even reading. I'm just rolling through questions. Who should I drop to stash Akers? Period. Sutton, Warren, Kareem Hunt, Quentin Johnston. Out of the group, if I'm stashing Akers, I'm most likely dropping Warren. Thank you. Okay, scrolling back up. Aiden sends in a question. Says, Deontay Johnson, Ford, Moss, or Swift? Deontay Johnson, Ford, Moss, or Swift? 2 running backs, flex, full PPR. Okay, so Moss has to play. Swift probably plays next to him. And between Deontay Johnson and Ford, I probably wait a week and see what Deontay Johnson's capable of. So I probably go with Ford, Moss, and Swift in this scenario. Aiden, thank you. Hassan says, full PPR, drop Palmer for Shakir. Yes. That's fine. I mean, again, Palmer's injured, so it's not even a difficult giveaway. Amarello 27 says full PPR, pick up 2 free agents: Gibson, Jennings, BTJ, Downs, Thielen, and Gesicki. If I'm picking up 2 of these players, it's BTJ, Brian Thomas Jr., and it's Adam Thielen. And as for, yeah, that's absolutely what I would go with. As for who I'm dropping off of your bench, Gus Edwards can be dropped. I think so can Greg Dortch. Thank you. All right, I think I've caught up effectively. Okay, let's see here. We had a question that came in from Bruce Cowdery. He says, your thoughts on playing Minshew or Dalton? Hail Mary play this week. If I'm going to prefer one over the other, I'd probably prefer Andy Dalton. Do I actually want to play Andy Dalton? The way that I see it, like, looking at the matchup as a whole, I feel like Zamir White should find himself enough success to where maybe he's even taken away a touchdown here or there from Gardner. And I could imagine, or I would imagine, well, it's probably just safer to play Gardner. He's got the 2 weeks of experience already. They're coming off of a hot win. He was 30 for 38 against Baltimore secondary. It's just Gardner. I'm not going to overthink that. Let's just play Minshew. Rusty Wright says, struggling to find a trade in my tattoo league. What's your panic level on a wide receiver room? I have Hill, Kupp, Worthy, Amari Cooper, Demarcus Robinson, and Rome Odunze. How aggressive should I be? Wow. Considering you have Kupp dealing with an injury, he's going to be out for 2 weeks. Amari Cooper has done nothing. Odunze is a disaster because of the quarterback. Robinson is unstartable unless you're in a desperate situation. Worthy is like once every 3 weeks will score. Hill is in a scenario where he's not going to be super valuable until another month surpasses. Panic levels probably like at a 6. I'm not like losing my mind, but I'm definitely looking for alternative ways to try to improve this team, specifically trying to move Worthy. That's what I'm looking to do. You kind of can't move Amari Cooper because he's done nothing thus far. Same thing with Demarcus Robinson and Odunze. And I don't want to give away Hill or Kupp unless I'm getting really good value in return for it. So if I'm going to move Tyreek Hill, someone better be giving me back like a top 5-6 wide receiver. Like I want Chase back. I want Amon-Ra back. I want Jefferson back. I don't want to have to give away Hill and get Marvin Harrison. Like I'm not doing that. I'm not playing that game. The Watch Hangout says Pacheco for DJ Moore and Worthy. Sorry. Pacheco for DJ Moore or Worthy and JSN. I have Irving. So you lost Pacheco, but you're going to trade him away in order to get wide receivers instead of running back depth. And if I was going to pick, it would be DJ Moore and JSN. Thank you. Jamar Joseph says, keep Pirine or Dowdle. I'd rather have Dowdle rest of the season. Thank you. Todd from State Farm says, who wins, Bijan, McLaurin, or CD Javante? I would assume that if it's a half PPR, I'll take the Bijan side. If it's a full PPR, I'll take the CD Lamb side. Thank you. Vaughn Mitchell says, in a PPR 3 wide receiver league, trade Higgins for Shaheed? No, I wouldn't. I'd keep Higgins. Thank you. Nathan Ray says, Ford for Pickens? Yeah, let's do that. I don't have an issue with that. That works for me. Worthy plus Ford for Debo or Devontae Smith. If you can trade Worthy and Jerome Ford for Debo and Devontae Smith, you are a legend. Nathan, thank you. If you could do it, do it. Otherwise, Pickens is fine by me. King Brian 2K says in a PPR, which two of these players would I start? Rashad White, Kyron Williams, David Montgomery, and J.K. Dobbins. In a PPR format, this week, if it's my team, I'm most likely rolling with Rashad White and Montgomery in a full PPR scoring format. Yeah, in a full PPR, those are the two that I would roll with. Kyron Williams is very much so an enticing play because of the full PPR. If Rashad White is banged up and his groin injury re-aggravates this week, I would then just roll to playing Kyron and David Montgomery there. Thank you, King Brian. It's Kafka sends in a question, says, who would you flex between Brian Thomas Jr., Christian Kirk, Demarcus Robinson, and Eckler? I'd play Eckler out of the bunch. Thank you. Shackle Free sends in a super chat. There was nothing attached to it. Let me go ahead and try to find that. Shackle Free says in a half PP. All right, sorry, here we go. Says 0.5. Add Hunt and drop who? Ford, White, Mostert, Thomas Jr., Pierce, Shakir, Cowboys, or 49ers defense. I want to play the Cowboys defense next week, but I want to play the 49ers going forward. So I'd keep the 49ers defense and most likely drop the Cowboys in order to pick this up. I don't think you need to roster two defenses. I think you're fine just with the 49ers going forward. I just looked at their schedule. It's pretty prime going forward. Thank you, Shackle. After Shackle's question, we had one from Billy Roy, who there's nothing attached to that either, but let me see if I can find it. Billy Roy says Drake London and Montgomery for Neighbors and Dobbins. Yeah, I'd rather have Drake London and Montgomery rest of the season. Thank you, Billy. Appreciate it. Chef, New York City, or New York Nick, technically, NYK, says, trade Christian McCaffrey, Olave, and Neighbors, and Zach Moss for Breece Hall, Evans, Javonte Williams, and Tank Dell. I think it's very much so dependent on a lot of factors. If you don't have Mason and you're... okay, so here's the deal. You're trading away Christian McCaffrey, so I'm assuming you don't have Mason. So you're getting back Breece Hall, which is beautiful. Christian McCaffrey or Breece Hall, you get great value there. Evans, I prefer over Olave. Now you have to give away Neighbors and Zach Moss for Javonte and Tank Dell. Which, again, because of the benefit that you're getting for the absence of McCaffrey, the potential injury risk there, and not having Mason, and the upgrade at wide receiver theoretically, I'm willing to tank the losses at those two other positions just to have the Breece Hall side there. Cowboys 9511 says, trade Diggs for Stevenson. Yeah, sounds good to me. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'd be hard-pressed to find a reality in which I could get away with one of those trades. There's no way in any of my leagues I could find myself trading Diggs for Stevenson, but if you guys can, abso-fucking-lutely, let's do it. Are you kidding me? That's a steal. All right, let's see here. After those questions, we have one that comes in from Kiwi Sports Mage. Thank you, Kiwi. Appreciate it. Says the following question. In a half PPR, one wide receiver, two flex league, we have JSN, J.K. Dobbins, Brian Robinson Jr., Josh Downs, and Kareem Hunt. So I don't expect Kareem Hunt to play this week. He could end up being active within the given week, but even if he is, I'd rather play JSN, J.K. Dobbins, and Brian Robinson this week. Thank you, Kiwi. Alex Matos says, I was able to draft Pacheco and Christian McCaffrey, so now they are on the injured reserve. Should I try to, should I try to more one of them? I think you mean trade. Maybe your autocorrect busted, but either way, I think you mean trade. I was offered Pollard and Shaheed for Pacheco. Yeah, sounds good. Again, Pacheco's going to be out for potentially 6 to 8 weeks. That's 2 months of fantasy football. You will not have him. So there's a chance that for the next 8 games, you could lose in the absence of not having a running back of his caliber on your team. So hopefully you have the backup for McCaffrey in the form of Mason. And hopefully you've picked up any of the Kansas City running backs to give yourself an edge within that backfield. But giving away Pacheco and getting back Pollard and Shaheed, I have no issue with it all. Thank you. Michael Ortiz says, hi, Andrew. Can you give me some trade targets for Rachaad White? Okay, but it depends what position you're looking for. So do me a favor. Let's see here. Also, I dropped Kirk for Zamir on the waivers. Thoughts? That's fine. Zamir will have a good week here, and you can probably sell him after. But yeah, the question is, Michael Ortiz, are you trying to trade Rachaad White for a running back, or are you trying to trade him for a wide receiver? Thank you. Type it in the live chat. Young Money says, I need a backup quarterback. Drop Christian Watson for Geno Smith or Donald. I'd rather take Geno Smith. His upcoming schedule is brilliant. Hayden Riggs sends in a question and says, traded Neighbors for Singletary and Jonathan Brooks. Thoughts? Traded Neighbors for Singletary and Jonathan Brooks. I needed an RB2 pair in order to pair up because I lost Pacheco. That's fine. Again, you're getting a pair that for right now, Singletary will fill in until Jonathan Brooks kind of takes over. Again, beggars can't be choosers in this scenario. You have to go ahead and make a move in order to fill in for Pacheco, and you probably didn't have the opportunity of picking up one of those potential KC backs, so that's fine. B. Morales 3000 says, in a 12-team half PPR, 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 2 flex league, got offered Mahomes for James Conner. Interesting. I have Fields, Lawrence, Hall, Mason, Walker, Dobbins, Javonte Williams, Ayuk. Okay, so here's the thing. This is the way that I see it currently. If I was going to trade away James Conner, I want Jalen Hurts. I do not want Patrick Mahomes. unless I'm going to get a top tier running back, a top tier quarterback, James Conner's not coming off of my team. Like, the guy is a machine right now. So I get it. I understand that Fields and Lawrence is rough, but I'd rather just go and trade Dobbins for a lesser quarterback. Like, I'd rather go trade Dobbins for Kyler or Burrow and just let it roll. Well, I'm not even going to trade him for Burrow, but I'd go trade him for Kyler and I'd let it roll that way. But I'm not giving up Connor for Mahomes. Like, I get it. You definitely do need a quarterback upgrade, but I'm in the business of most likely looking elsewhere rather than having to give away Connor for Mahomes. I just don't like that trade up front, 1-for-1. Okay, God's Gang sends in a question. Says, should I drop Detroit's kicker for Saints kicker? Yeah. They play indoors this week, I believe, right? I think it's in New Orleans. Let me check. NFL Week 3. They do, in fact, yeah, they play at home indoors on Sunday morning. So, yeah, I don't mind that. No issue there. Let's see here. Nick James, Music and Videos, says, I got Kareem Hunt stashed, but P. Ryan is also available to swap. And Tua is my backup, but Carr and Mayfield are available. Should I pick up one of them and drop Tua? Yeah, why not? I mean, again, if you're going to need them for an upcoming bye week, I think that's a pretty good plan of action. You would only ever pick up P. Ryan in this circumstance if you need a start for this week and you are missing a running back. Thank you, Nick James. Appreciate it. Bearcat says, I joined Underdog with your deposit code, Andrew. How do I get the content? So you'll get it every single Sunday morning, and that'll be it. So once you sign up using the code, and then you subsequently make a first-time deposit, as long as it's $10 minimum, you'll get the deposit match will be set into your account, and then you can take advantage of like the different plays, right? So theoretically, the free play of like Aaron Rodgers 0.5 total yards should be available on the pick'em slip. So, or like in the pick'ems area. That's how you'll know like everything's kind of functioning properly. So theoretically, just like example it. So when I go to Underdog, like right now, like in this area, like, okay, this is for every customer. This is available for all customers. This is available for also all customers. But you'll have the Aaron Rodgers one somewhere here. And then you'll be good to go. By the way, if you guys haven't taken advantage of these, I will probably put one together in tomorrow's video before the Thursday night game with Garrett Wilson when I talk about Garrett Wilson in tomorrow's wide receiver video. But again, a pretty good discount play for this. And then, of course, taking advantage of this, you got 3 more days on it. But you'll have the Aaron Rodgers play here. And then additionally, every Sunday morning, whatever email is associated with your Underdog account will receive an email from my email that includes a Excel sheet that has the half PPR and full PPR rankings for that Sunday morning. Those rankings typically will be sent out like early Sunday morning around 5 a.m. So keep an eye out for that. Check your spam folder as well, Bearcat. Thank you for the support. Appreciate it. All right, let's see here. After Bearcat, we have Taylor Sawyer. Actually, didn't I ask someone to type in the chat? I'm trying to remember who it was. It was the Rashad White question. So I got to go find who had the Rashad White question. It was Michael Ortiz. Michael Ortiz, I haven't forgotten about you. That's not what I wanted to do. No. Let's not do that. Wide receiver. Got it. Okay. So, as it currently stands, if I'm trading for a wide receiver, let's go look this up really quickly. Let's go here. And then let's go to here. Okay. So if I'm looking at wide receivers who have underperformed based on where we had them ranked thus far this season, right? The wide receivers that have like made huge messes of their first 2 weeks of the season. Ayuk is like the first name that pops up based on where he was ranked. Other players that are obviously dealing with injuries, but Ayuk is like the number 1 name I want to go after. Outside of him, then it goes to Olave, then it goes to Garrett Wilson, and then it gets into a conversation of like, if I'm going to trade Rashad White, can I get back Amari Cooper and DJ Moore? Like, can I get back multiple wide receivers for it that haven't played well at all in any sort of circumstance? That's the path that then I would lead upon. Then, after that, if that doesn't work, I would then start knocking on the door of potentially, I mean, I'd legitimately knock on the Puka Nacua door, along with maybe Jalen Waddle. Those are the kind of names I'm throwing out. Now, if somehow, some way, I don't know how it would be possible, but if somehow, some way, you're able to sell Rashad White for a wide receiver that has been playing extremely well for 2 weeks. So theoretically, you could trade him for Devontae Smith. You would do it. If you could trade him for, I mean, gosh, if you could trade him for Rashee Rice, you would do it. But these offers are not going to come knocking in your direction. No one's asking for Rachaad White for those players. If you could trade him for Deebo Samuel, I would do it. Evans, Adams, those are cool. I'm honestly Marvin Harrison for sure. Drake London for sure. Again, I mentioned Olave earlier already. Cooper Kupp, I would do it for. A lot of players. A lot of players. Okay, thank you, Michael. Let's see here. So Taylor Sawyer. That's what we're looking for. Tom Sawyer. Taylor Sawyer says trade Amon-Ra St. Brown and Kamara for McCaffrey, Jordan Mason, and Trey McBride. McCaffrey, Mason, and Trey McBride. This is the thing, right? So as it currently stands, depending on how badly you need a tight end, kind of determines the answer to this. Because ultimately, if I have Amon-Ra St. Brown and Amon-Ra is going to be a top 3 wide receiver rest of the season, and Alvin Kamara is going to stay consistent, not going to have his red zone rushing work stolen, is going to stay healthy. Technically, I'd rather keep Amon-Ra and Kamara the rest of the way. Yeah, I'd rather just do that. You're getting you're going to get a running back in Jordan Mason / McCaffrey that is somewhere between 17 to 23 points per game. Sure, right? So regardless of who's playing, that's what you get in that circumstance. And then you get McBride, who is probably 10 points per game if we're lucky. Maybe 11, maybe 12. Depends on, the ups and the downs and how it flows for the remainder of the season. So you get a 17 to 20 piece and you get a 10 to 12 piece. I'd rather just have the Amon-Ra Kamara if they're both going to be 18-point players. Or at least if Kamara is going to hang out around 17, 18, and Kamara is going to fluctuate, and Amon-Ra is going to fluctuate between 18 to 20, I'd rather just keep Kamara and Amon-Ra rest of the season. Thank you for the question. Man, my nose, for some reason, I just can't stop itching this. I don't know what it is. Is it a nose hair that's attacking me from the inside? I don't get it. Okay, let's see here. AJ sends in the question, says Rico. Sorry, that's not Rico. That's Rice and Nico. Rice or Nico for Williams, Josh Jacobs, or Mason? Rice or Nico for Williams, Josh Jacobs, or Mason? If you can theoretically trade away Rashee Rice for Williams, well, okay, so which Williams is this? Is this Javonte Williams or Jameson Williams? That's a huge context that I need. So tell me, AJ, in the live chat, is it which Williams are we referring to? Thank you. I seal you. Mark says, I have a full PPR flex 2 out of Charbonnet, Higgins, Addison, and Singletary. Under the assumption that Higgins plays, he would get flex started. Under the assumption that Kenneth Walker doesn't play, Charbonnet would also get flex started. If, in fact, neither of those situations take place, then, of course, you have to play Singletary and Addison, but that's under the assumption that Addison plays. So, again, as it currently stands, way too early to ask a question of this magnitude because, again, we will only know for sure by Saturday, and if at best, maybe Friday if we're lucky. Heisenberg says, in a full PPR, start 3, Godwin, Neighbors, Waddle, Reed, BTJ. Godwin and Neighbors probably have to play. Reed only plays if Jordan Love is in there. So it's probably Godwin, Neighbors, and Waddle for this week. As for your second question, says Pacheco on the IR. My second RB is Ty Chandler. Should I trade for another RB or lean with Chandler? Look, I heard that Aaron Jones is dealing with a hip injury, was limited at practice. If that's going to be something that we have to monitor, Chandler could be the starting back in the given week. Just keep an eye on that. Grant Lathern says, how high are you on Dobbins the rest of the season? I'm not that high. I'd say that he's probably a solid RB2, middle of the pack RB2 though. I'd rather have James Conner. I'd rather have Kenneth Walker. I'd rather have David Montgomery. So there are other running backs that I just prefer over him rest of the season. I think it's relatively fair in that kind of regard. Taylor Sawyer says, so we took care of that. It says trade Kamara and Amon-Ra for McCaffrey. Oh, McCaffrey we already took care of this. Yeah, we already did. I honestly, I'd rather just keep. I could understand, I could justify the trade in my mind, but ultimately I think the value that you are giving up for what you get in return isn't as great as just keeping the players on roster without any context of what the rest of the roster looks like. Rusty Wright says follow up. Can plug, let's see here. Can package Kyler / JD plus Worthy. Which wide receiver do I target? If you're going to trade away Kyler and Worthy or Jaden Daniels and Worthy, okay, here's the thing. I want typically all of the top 15 wide receivers to be a potential prospect that you go after. But again, you have to go after a team in your league who theoretically does not have a quarterback. So you have to go find the team first and foremost who is missing either Jordan Love or Tua Tagovailoa or whoever is not satisfied with Caleb Williams and decided to draft him. And you have to take the best receiver off their team. That's what you got to do. If you could do it, beautiful. I don't know which wide receivers they have, but that's really going to be it. Because if I tell you, hey, go after Devontae Adams, that's completely irrelevant if the Devontae Adams team has Josh Allen, right? So just go after the best potential in that kind of a circumstance. Powerful AD3 says, lost Pacheco. I have Richardson, CeeDee Lamb, Adams, Devontae Smith, Connor Ferguson, Ford, Terry, Shakir, Jaden Daniels. Who should I trade to replace Pacheco? Yeah, so it's pretty simple in my perspective. You're either trading away Jaden Daniels or you're trading away Anthony Richardson, and you're trying to go get a running back of the caliber that is up there. Very similar to how I answered Rusty's question. You're going to a team in your league who doesn't have a quarterback, who needs a quarterback and wants one of your two, and you're trying to get maybe their second best running back off of their team. If you could trade away like an Anthony Richardson and get a David Montgomery in return, I'd be more than happy to do so. And I'd be perfectly fine rolling with Jaden Daniels for the remainder of the season. But again, it's very dependent on which teams in your league need a quarterback, because otherwise, I'm not trying to sell anybody else. I think it's a really strong team elsewhere. You just have an abundance of quarterback depth that you can very easily use to make an improvement at running back. In the absence of Pacheco, of course. Thank you. Okay, Almost Ace sends in a question, but there wasn't anything attached to it. Almost. Let's see here. How do you spell almost? Let's see here. Oh, it's with a 0. Got it. Almost A says, in a PPR, should I trade Bijan, Flowers, and JSN for Chase London and Henry? Yes. Give me Chase London and Henry 10 times out of 10. Sounds good to me. Thank you, Almost. Okay, continuing on the questions. Again, we've been here for an hour 37. I think I'll probably call it sooner rather than later. Most likely in the direction of the next 10 to 15 minutes. I do appreciate y'all coming through. I'll be back tomorrow night after the Thursday night football game to answer questions. I'll also be back Friday night, Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning. So again, live streaming every day for the remainder of the season. Thank you for your patience. Continuing on with, okay, actually, let me see here. I was trying to answer. We took care of that one. Yeah, so I needed AJ's context. AJ, haven't forgot about you. AJ says the following. Maybe, okay. Here we go, AJ, where are you? It says Rice or Nico for Williams or Josh Jacobs full PPR. Rice or Nico or Williams, Josh Jacobs, or Josh Jacobs full PPR. Yeah, I still need more context. Who is that Williams? Kyron Williams. Thank you. I was thinking Javonte and Jameson. I wasn't even thinking Kyron at that point. I have Javon. Okay, got it. Okay, so to answer your question, let's go back to the one that you asked earlier. So, Rice or Nico for Kyron Williams, Josh Jacobs, or Mason. Have a wide receiver depth, lost Christian McCaffrey. If I was in your position, I would be, okay. This one's tough. I want to get Mason off this team. But if you can survive with, for example, trading, let's say you trade Rice and you get Josh Jacobs in return, or you trade Nico, you get Josh Jacobs in return. I'm okay with that trade because eventually Christian McCaffrey will return. And once he does at a full capacity, you'll be safe to go under the assumption he stays healthy. So if I was in your position, I would try to trade one of those two receivers with another piece for Jacobs and Mason if you could get away with it. If you can't and you can only get one of these three running backs, I'd be willing to take the risk of trading one of those players just to get Jacobs and then wait for McCaffrey to come back and just have McCaffrey and Jacobs dominate for the rest of the season. So that's what I'm looking in the direction of. Considering you don't have Mason and it may be very difficult to get him, if you're not able to get him with a combination of, let's say, Rice in a lower piece for Mason and Jacobs, If you can't do that, then just take Jacobs and let's roll with it. Thank you. The Real Franklin sends in a question. Real Franklin says, best kickers to stream this week. No clue. It's so early. I haven't even done kicker rankings. I haven't even done like the full extension of quarterback or tight end rankings yet. All of that will be available tomorrow. So again, that's why I end these streams as early as I do. I would go on for hours more if it wasn't for the fact that I have to put out a video every day. So because of that, I don't even know what kickers I'm starting this week. Obviously, guys like Cairo Santos or Blake Grupe. I mean, shoot, even the Detroit Lions kicker, the Buccaneers kicker. These are all great options that really don't have that high of roster percentage based on Yahoo at least. So those are pick up and plays if you need them. But in terms of this, the starters, I mean, again, if you have Kaimi Fairbairn or Brandon Aubrey, they're putting up 20 points a week. You're not flinching in those scenarios. But those are some of the names. Thank you. Spencer P says, I need an RB2 and a flex spot in a full PPR. Available are Amari Cooper, Jalen Warren, Zamir White, Sutton, and Mostert. Okay, in your circumstance here, Zamir White is your RB2, and I'd most likely play Amari Cooper in your flex. Thank you, Spencer. Myra Williams says, you think this was a good trade? I traded Montgomery and Brian Thomas Jr. for Travis Etienne and Malik Neighbors. Yes, I absolutely think that's a great trade. That is a fantastic trade. In my opinion, you traded up on both positions. You made an upgrade from Montgomery to Etienne, and then you subsequently also made a huge upgrade from BTJ to Neighbors. Thoughts on Etienne's bounce back? Listen, I think he will play better as time goes on. And the fact that Bigsby's dealing with a shoulder honestly leans in the direction of Etienne just getting more usage. And if their offense doesn't play well, he'll just continue to get more receiving upside in a full PPR format. So I think you made a huge trade, and that's a massive victory. Connor says, Kyron, Brian Robinson Jr., Connor, Smitty, Ayuk, Godwin, JSN, BTJ Tank. Okay, very well, Connor. Trade Connor for Nico Collins straight up. Then trade JSN for Pollard for running back depth. What do you think? Okay, so of your current running back depth, you're basically just making slight moves here toward JSN to Pollard. You're getting Nico. So basically you'd have Pollard, Kyron Williams, Brian Robinson Jr., and then Smitty, Ayuk. So here's the thing. Connor, can you start 3 wide receivers and 2 flex? Because you have Devontae Smith, Ayuk, Godwin, and then you would theoretically be bringing in Nico Collins. So if you could start 3 wide receivers and a flex in this league, then I'm all for this potential move trade and like sequencing of Connor and then JSN and then Pollard. If you can do that, sure. But if not, like you've already got 3 really solid wide receivers to the point to where it's like, okay, if you make these trades, then the next move is to take Godwin and Smitty or Godwin and Ayuk and go flip them for CeeDee Lamb, right? That would be the next move after that, Connor. Thank you. AJ says, 3 cuffs, Irving, Chase, Allen, Hunt, Steele, long-term. Long-term, the cuffs that I want are Chase Brown. I would also like to have Bucky Irving and Kareem Hunt. Thank you. Grant Latham says, got offered Laporta and Singletary for Dobbins and Shaheed. Tight end is kind of rough with Ingram. Worth it? Question mark. I'm okay with that. I am one of the non-believers of a Rashid Shaheed rest of season value. So I'm perfectly fine with that trade. Grant, thank you. Johnny Johnson says, would you trade Cook, JSN? And by the way, Grant, once Ingram becomes of value, once he's returning and healthy and of value, then you can ship him off. Thank you. Johnny Johnson says, would you trade Cook, JSN, Kittle for JT and Laporta? James Cook, JSN, and Kittle for JT. Yes, I would. I'll take JT Laporta there. Thank you. Hakeem says, trade Kyron for Josh Jacobs. Thoughts? Yeah, I'll take that. I don't have an issue with that at all. I had him higher ranked in the preseason anyway. All right. When we move on from that question, we move on to Cowboys 9511, who says, who's a good running back target for Diggs? Honestly, I think I answered this earlier. I don't think you can get much out of Diggs. If you can get Pollard, that'd be incredible. Incredible. If you can get Brian Robinson Jr., I'd be perfectly fine with that. If you could get Dobbins, I'd be perfectly fine with that. Now, as for some of the lower valued players, if you could somehow steal a Rashad White, you should. outside of those scenarios for running back, like no one's going to give you anybody. Like if I, for example, go and look at today's running back video that I posted, and let's see this. Let's go pull this up. So if I look at all of these running backs and I think to myself, who can I get for Diggs? I doubt there's no way someone's giving me Aaron Jones or Joe Mixon or Etienne. No one should give me Aaron Jones, Mixon, Brian Robinson, Kyron, Etienne, Jake. All these players from like 23 and up on my rankings list should not be able to be even fucked with a potential Stephon Diggs trade. But if you can get one, you should immediately. Otherwise, with a Stephon Diggs trade, you are most likely in the business of trading for Zach Moss or Devin Singletary or Javonte Williams or Zamir White, which again, we don't want right now. We'd rather just hold Diggs. So in this circumstance, if you can trade for a top 23 running back from today's video, like just specifically, just let me just show this just so we're all on the same page as to what I'm referring to exactly here. Okay. Shoot. Wrong. Okay. Well, I got to move over. Hold up. Everybody stay calm. Let's move Andrew. Okay. So you see this? Anybody from 23 and up, we want. We'll take them all. They're not going to give it to us. Therefore, at that point, you're pretty much kind of screwed. And at that point, you're kind of just like, do I want Zach Moss? Not really. So I might as well hold on to Stephon Diggs. Hope he has another big week here. Am I out of focus already? What the heck happened here? Hello? Yeah, my camera is out of focus. Classic. I'm sweating. All right. Camera? Hello? Camera. Let's log back in. So yeah, in this circumstance, if you can get it, you go for it. If you can't, you're probably just holding. Because I don't know if you can get, like, are we trading Diggs for Najee? I don't think we are. I think we just wait. Jiwa says, what can I get if I trade Cup and Dobbins? What can I get if I trade Cup and Dobbins or Mason? Okay, hold up. If you are going to be trading Mason, it has to be to a McCaffrey manager. What you can get from the McCaffrey manager is purely up to them. If not, you flip it around and you go trade for McCaffrey. If you could do that, that'd be great. Like imagine if you could take Cup and Dobbins, go to the McCaffrey manager, ask for McCaffrey and a wide receiver. That's what I would do. That's my immediate suggestion. If you can't get something of that nature, trading away Cup and Dobbins, if you're trying to get one player in return, like I'm going after Bijans, like I'm going after top tier players. I'm going after people who lost running back value from Pacheco and may be willing to settle for this kind of a move. But in your scenario, considering you have Mason, if you're not going to trade away Mason, you should be going and trading for McCaffrey. Griffin Stewart says in a 12-team full PPR, Hurts, Nico, Devontae Smith, Bijan, Kyron, Andrews, Amari Cooper. Should I trade Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith for Marvin Harrison and CJ Stroud? Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith for Marvin Harrison and CJ Stroud. As of right now, I prefer Marvin Harrison over Devontae Smith. I prefer Jalen Hurts over CJ Stroud. So based on that, the question is, which one do I prefer? Which gap is closer, and which side sits on the preference? Let me look at Stroud's rest of season strength of schedule. Let's see how this looks really quickly. So they take on Minnesota, then Jacksonville, Buffalo, New England, Green Bay, Indianapolis, Jets, Detroit, Dallas. Like when I look at this upcoming schedule for the Texans, it looks like every game could theoretically be a shootout to an extent. I mean, obviously depending on how their defense plays, but when you play against like Buffalo, Green Bay, Indy, Detroit, Dallas, Jacksonville, Miami, Kansas City, Baltimore week 17 kind of sucks because he hasn't played well against them in his short career thus far, but I think it's a lateral move. I don't mind the trade. If you prefer to have the Stroud Marvin side, I don't have an issue with it. Thank you. Spencer P says, does Amari Cooper have a chance of being better? Yeah, absolutely. Listen, he has opportunity. They're throwing him the ball. Are they the most accurate or quality opportunities? No. But in time, especially potentially even this week, Amari Cooper should have a bounce back. Hakeem says, should I trade Kyron Williams for Josh Jacobs and Scary Terry? Trade? Yeah, I don't mind that. I have no issue with that at all. Thank you. Vainsky says 12-team full PPR, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a flex. Cup is out. I have Burrow and Kincaid Monday. Very well. Who would you start as my wide receiver 2 in flex. Coleman, Whittington, Swift, Quentin Johnston, Gus Edwards. Not playing Gus, not playing Coleman, not playing Whittington. So it's Quentin Johnston and Swift. Thank you. Fainsky, appreciate it. Okay, after Fainsky, we follow up with Jay, who says, would you trade Jonathan Taylor for Garrett Wilson or A.J. Brown? Also, what about Jacobs for Montgomery? Okay, so here's the thing. Jacobs for Montgomery, don't want Montgomery. I'd rather have Jacobs. Follow up, I have JT and Jacobs plus Connor and Cook on my team. Got it. So you've got so many running backs that you just don't know what to do with them. If I'm going to trade away Jonathan Taylor, I am fine getting back a healthy A.J. Brown, but it's got to be healthy. Obviously, we won't know if he's healthy for a little while, but I would wait until that sequence because I'm not going to trade for him now. I trade for him in the final week of right before he's going to return so that I can take advantage of the Jonathan Taylor, value now because it's going to go up. So until then, if you're still looking for a wide receiver, Jamar Chase is the door that you knock on. You've got running backs and they might not really care which of the group that they take from you because you've got JT, Jacobs, Connor, and Cook, who I'm willing to give any of those if you can get into the conversation of getting Jamar Chase. But yeah, I would say that, let's say, for example, it's an opportunity to trade James Cook for A.J. Brown right now or James Conner for A.J. Brown right now, I'd do it. But as of Jonathan Taylor, I'd hold. Coco says, flex Jennings, Pirine, or Demarcus Robinson. I'd probably flex them. I was going to say Demarcus Robinson, but I think it depends. Like in a full PPR, I can imagine Samaje Perine this week probably gets himself like 4 or 5 receptions, 35, 40 receiving yards. So let's say, for example, in a full PPR, Samaje Perine is capable of like 8 points without rushing upside. Let's say he rushes for like 30 yards, maybe, if we're lucky. That's like 11 fantasy points in a pretty mediocre performance. Demarcus Robinson and Jennings could very easily produce far less than that, which I'm worried about. So I think Samaje is just like the safe play within the given week, assuming, of course, Kareem Hunt doesn't get elevated by the time we get to Sunday. Reuven Roberts says, Mason plus Johnston for Olave, Warren, and Chandler. Again, the Warren Chandler aspect of it doesn't really entice me. I think it's like the most valuable pieces in this trade, Reuven, are just Olave and Mason. And if Olave is the best player that you can get for Mason because nobody else will give you anything else, then I guess you can go for it. I don't love it, but again, in the long term, it is definitely in your benefit to go after a potential piece other than Mason because eventually he's going to disappear with McCaffrey returning from IR in a couple weeks here. So if that's the best trade you can get, then yeah, let's go for it. Otherwise, yeah, I'd like to get more. I would. But if that's the peak capacity of what your league mates are offering, then there's nothing to do about it. Maybe you can give it another week, just take advantage of the fact that Mason's going to score 20 points this week and cash in on that, or just continue on looking for potential trades, or make a move now. It's up to you. If I was you and that's the best trade I'm getting, I'm waiting another week. Michael sends in a question, says PPR got offered Mason and Dell for Nico Collins. Take it. Do you have Christian McCaffrey? Like if you have Christian McCaffrey and you need Mason, sure, but otherwise I don't think so. I'd rather keep Nico Collins if I don't have McCaffrey. I don't need Mason in that scenario. Hakeem sends in a question, says trade Kyron Williams and Jameson Williams for Jacobs, Scary Terry, and Montgomery. Kyron Williams and Jameson Williams for Jacobs and Montgomery. Yeah, I'll take the Jacobs Montgomery side of that deal. I have no issue with that, Hakeem. To the max says full PPR trade Diggs, Shaheed, Steele for Chase and Montgomery. Diggs, Shaheed. If you can somehow, some way get Jamar Chase, and that's not Chase Brown, right? If you can get Jamar Chase and Montgomery for whatever that ragtag group of Diggs, Rashid Shaheed, and Steele is, hell yes. LOL sends in a question, says trade Tyreek Hill for Devontae Adams and Ramondre Stevenson. Yep, no problem with that. I'm okay with that. Sounds good. Marcus in the live chat said, what does it say? Would you start Josh Downs or Tank Dell this week? Let's see. Let's get to Friday. If Josh Downs practices the whole week, then we can consider it. Otherwise, I think it's a little too early to jump on, that potential train. Hey, Andrew, would you trade away Ridley and Zamir White for Rashee Rice? Yes, instantly. Okay, again, so I'm going to close out today's stream in about 6 minutes here. That's what I'm going to call it. It'll be 2 hours into the stream. Again, I do appreciate y'all coming through. I'll be back tomorrow. Again, thank you very much for all the support. Okay, so Lewis sends in a question, or Luis says, do I make a move or hold? We have Burrow, Jacobs, Kyron, Devontae Smith, Tank, London, Chase Henry with Najee Harris and Jaden Daniels on the bench. Okay, so you've got a really strong team. Ultimately, obviously Tank Dell is the biggest weakness of that starting lineup. So the question is, how do we improve on Tank Dell? Which really you don't, I mean, it's just Jaden Daniels. That's how you improve upon it. So you take Jaden Daniels and you go try to buy like a Zay Flowers, or you go try to buy a Jaden Reed or a DK Metcalf, or the most that you can at a wide receiver. Because if you're playing in a half PPR, so you could go after running back, but honestly I'd rather just go after a receiver in this circumstance, just to give you a little bit more wide receiver depth, considering you already have Henry, Kyron, and Jacobs. So yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't know who your tight end is, but ultimately Jaden Daniels is that shipping piece, and you're going and knocking on doors of wide receivers that, again, may not have played well already, and maybe you're going and buying Olave. Maybe you're going and buying Ayuk, and if you can't, and you can potentially buy for even more, then let's go buy Neighbors, or let's go buy DK Metcalf. Thank you. Let's see here. Drago Hard 609. Where's your question, though? I don't even see Drago's question. Drago says, let's see here. Drago, where's your question? I just dropped Chase Brown for steal. Brown stat sucks. I don't see the hype. Sorry. Yeah, that's fine. I don't have an issue. Was that what your question is? Because, I mean, it doesn't seem like much of a question, my man. If you have a question, please do me a favor, type it in the chat, Drago. Thank you very much. Alrighty. Until Drago, I'm going to answer a couple more questions here. Football says full PPR. I have Ayuk, JJ, Devontae Smith, Neighbors. Okay, very well. BTJ, Gibbs, Brian Robinson Jr., Pollard, Ford, running backs. What wide receivers should I let go for Saquon or Kamara? If you can get Saquon in return, I'd legitimately give... I mean, there's no way that... Okay. Let's just put it this way. If somebody said, hey, I'll give you Kamara, you got to give me Ayuk or Devontae Smith or Neighbors, I'd give it. If someone said, I'll give you Saquon, you just have to give me Justin Jefferson, I would take Saquon. So in both those scenarios, your wide receivers are enough for one-for-ones to where I would take those running backs, if possible. Football or football. VMS says, my boy, we're trading Marvin Harrison and Ford for Chase. Yes, give me Jamar Chase for the rest of the season. Thank you. Let's see here. 80815 says, choose 2.5 PPR. Ridley, Swift, Zamir White. As of this week, I'd probably go with Ridley and Zamir White there. Thank you. Pollux says, would you trade Jefferson for Gibbs and Neighbors in a full PPR? Yeah, I'm okay with it. That's fine by me. Again, that's under the assumption that you need that running back depth, because otherwise you wouldn't make a move of that caliber unless you needed running back. So without any context of what the rest of your team looks like, I'm assuming you need running back, and I'm fine with it. Ahmed Khan says, Kyler, Jacobs, Kenneth Walker, Amon-Ra St. Brown, J-Mo, Garrett Wilson, Kincaid is my team. Okay, very well. Should I trade Garrett Wilson for Jonathan Taylor? J-Mo would be my wide receiver too. Yeah, that's cool. I have no issue with that. That sounds good to me. I would definitely make that trade if I was in your position there, Ahmed. Thank you. All right. I'm still looking for the potential of Drago. Okay, here we go. Drago's question is, Henry and DK for Chase. Interesting. My running backs are Kamara, Hall. My wide receivers are Kupp, Rice, BTJ, and Scary Terry. Do I want to give away both these players for Jamar Chase in this circumstance? So, like, Henry for Chase makes sense. Obviously, that would be a huge favorite in Chase's form. Okay, so if you couldn't get away with... Yeah, because you don't want to give away Kamara or Hall. Yeah, I don't mind the trade. If it's a full PPR scoring format, Drago, I'll take the deal. If it's not, I'd be less inclined to make it. And I'd probably just stay. But if I was you, I would try to see if you could get away with giving away Henry and BTJ. Or Henry, BTJ, and Scary Terry, 3-for-1ing it, instead of having to give away DK Metcalf, because I kind of don't want to. But if you have to, then, I mean, I'm still all in for it. M. Suna says, please help. Baker / J.K. Dobbins, Moss. Okay, so Baker's your quarterback, J.K. Dobbins and Moss are your running backs, J-Jet, Adams are your wide receivers. Laporta, Godwin, Pickens, Christian McCaffrey, and Pacheco. Wow. Okay. I mean, look, even with all the injuries, you've got a pretty solid looking team there. I mean, again, you got really lucky with the J.K. Dobbins pop, so that's fantastic. We'll take it. Half PPR, hold or move. Everyone just wants to fleece me. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. That is what is typically going to happen. So in your position, you probably just hold until you get to a position to where J-Jet or Adams or Godwin is going to miss time. That would be the only position to where you would be in which you have to make a move. Now, if I was you, M. Suna, I would trade J.K. Dobbins right now straight up for Mason, and I would hope that you could get it in return. And at that point, I'd be really comfortable moving forward. But outside of that, I don't think you need to move because if everyone's trying to fleece you, it's not worth it. Adam Terrazon says PPR Dobbins for JT or Dobbins / Tyreek for ETN and Amon-Ra. Okay, Dobbins for Jonathan Taylor. If you can get that, absolutely 100%, no blinking, I would take it, and I would have already taken it by now. The idea of Dobbins and Tyreek Hill for ETN and Amon-Ra, very intriguing, but again, I think I'd rather just take the JT deal. Thank you. Lamosity says Stevenson and Kirk for Metcalf and Zamir White. Stevenson, Kirk for... I'd probably hold on to the Stevenson side of this deal. Zamir White's going to have a solid week here, but that's against Carolina. He's not going to do it every week. Again, he's proven in the first 2 weeks of the season where he's not pulling it. So I have more hope in Kirk rather than Zamir going forward. And in this circumstance, I'd rather just hold the running back talent of Stevenson in this position. Thank you. Okay, final couple questions here. We go to Carlton Collins, who says, what moves in an 8-team full PPR? We have Stroud, okay, he stays. Bijan, Pollard, Marvin Harrison, Garrett Wilson, Neighbors, Laporta. Rashad White's on the bench, along with Jerome Ford, Higgins. Look, you're playing in an 8-team league, so obviously you've got a lot of depth across the board and a lot of great players. But in your position, if I was controlling your team, I would have already taken Neighbors off of this last week and Dobbins and tried to go buy the most expensive wide receivers that you could possibly buy. That's what I would have, attempted to accomplish. So I would go knocking on all of the top tier wide receiver doors across the entire board. Because again, everybody's an 8-team league and they all have a lot of good players, but somebody's out there that is not happy with Jamar Chase and is like, oh, you know what? Look at Neighbors, look at Dobbins. Those are both 20-point players. I'll take them for just one Jamar Chase. At that point, I mean, again, you can't start all these players every single week, and if you can get a player of that caliber, you should. Crooners Live says, sold high on Dobbins for Jaden Reed. Thoughts? I don't know if that's... Once Jordan Love comes back, the value of Jaden Reed will kind of balance, which I think is very much so capable. I mean, again, late last season, at the back end of the year, about the last 7-8 games of the season, Jaden Reed was averaging like 14 fantasy points per game and a half PPR. So in a full PPR, it's probably like 16 and a half. So in that kind of a circumstance, if you're able to get, Dobbins right now for a 16.5 point wide receiver rest of the season, I think you're in a pretty good spot there. But again, it's very much so dependent on that return and how Jordan Love looks once he does. Let's see here. Vagabond sends in a question, says, Ayuk, Flowers, Godwin, Rice. Which 3 do I start? As of this week, Ayuk has to play. Rice kind of has to play. And between Flowers and Godwin, do I want to play Flowers against the Cowboys? I kind of do, but I probably, man, you have one of those really tough scenarios where you're just like, you've got too much talent across the board. How do I do this? Do I play Ayuk or do I even wait for him for another week? Now, Dobbins is going to be, not Dobbins, Debo's going to be out, so he has to play. Rice and Ayuk have to play. Between Godwin and Flowers, I'd probably lean towards playing... Yeah, I'd probably go Rice, Ayuk, and Godwin. Thank you. All right, Corey sends in a question. Says, trade Mixon for Kelsey. I have Kyron, Barkley, and Mason. If you have Mason and you don't have McCaffrey, you're leaving yourself relatively exposed for the remainder of the season if you don't get McCaffrey in exchange. So honestly, I'd rather just keep Mixon because once Mason disappears, you're in trouble. So in this scenario, I'd probably say no unless you say yes to having McCaffrey on your team. Let's see here. This next question comes in from what are you talking about? Or whatever the heck that pronunciation is. Traded Warren for Dell Start Ford or Dell this week in a PPR? Do I want to play Dell against Minnesota? I think I'd probably play Ford there. I know it's tough, but I'd probably just play Ford. It's kind of disgusting, but it is what it is. All right. That's going to cover it, guys. I've been here for 2 hours and 5 minutes. I appreciate y'all coming through, supporting the channel. Again, I'll be back tomorrow. If you guys want to check out the running back video, it is posted on the channel. I'll be back with my top 40 wide receivers tomorrow. And, of course, live streaming after tomorrow's night's game. Again, if you are participating in tomorrow night's game, you are automatically starting Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Ramondre Stevenson. Those guys are across the board starting. Anybody else that you start, potentially Hunter Henry, depends on what you have available to you elsewhere. But Hunter Henry, again, if you have I don't know, let's say he's the best option. Let's say it's like him or Gesicki or him or Ertz, Jonnu Smith, whatever was available on the waivers. We're just rolling with Hunter Henry accordingly. Okay, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow. Much love. Cue the music and have a great rest of your wonderful night. Good night, guys.